Hey, and welcome back to the number one podcast in the world, the Cellarcast, episode 203. I should have come up with I had all this time to come up with like a smooth intro, like I have a little anecdote or something. Oh, you know what? I'll give you guys an anecdote. So the other day, I was with Kat, and I should add that to the to the notes. I was with Kat. She was over. I dropped her off, and afterwards, I was like, you know what? I've been doing some gigs. Your guy might have been doing some playtesting things and some other jobs recently, like little things. And I have a little spending money. So why don't I'm kind of hungry. And I'm feeling like Mexican. Why don't I buy myself some food? Which I never do. I grew up in in an ingredients household where we always had the food at home. That meme was my childhood growing up, and to be honest, it's also my adulthood. So going out to get food is like ridiculous to me. But I figured, let's be ridiculous. So I'm feeling like Mexican, and I live in a fairly Hispanic area where there is no shortage of Mexican restaurants. There's genuinely like 7 within walking distance of me. So I look up what's open because it's still like 9:30, and it was a Sunday. Not a lot of things were open. There were 2 places very nearby. One of them I did not trust. Not for like health reasons, actually perhaps the opposite. The branding was too bright and colorful. They had like neon like Day of the Dead skulls in the windows, and it felt like Mexican food advertised at white people. And I just inherently did not trust it. I knew that it was probably going to be more expensive and less good. So I kept looking, and there was literally right around the corner from there, a block away, another Mexican restaurant. And this place, I knew it was legit for a couple, I'll say probably 4 reasons. The first reason, it was an actual hole in the wall. I'm pretty sure like they shared a sign with a nail salon that was next to them. So I think that they were like technically 2 units of the same building technically, in terms of zoning. Second of all, it was very like it was very small inside. Like the front of house was maybe it was probably smaller than my bedroom, honestly. Second of all, everyone behind the counter was Mexican. I don't think all of them were related, but at least enough of them looked related enough that I was like, this feels like they got some of the family to work here. They definitely had the teenage nephew at the front register because he was bilingual, so he could take orders in Spanish and English. Okay, 3. I was the only white person in there. Every other patron in the restaurant was Mexican. Which is, I was like, when I got there, it wasn't that busy, but as people started trickling in, I was like, okay, yeah, I made a good call. 4th thing, I was looking at the menu, which was all in Spanish, and I was kind of deciding on what I wanted. I was leaning towards tacos, and I was looking at the meat selection. Now, it had basically everything that you would probably expect, like all the standard stuff, but there was a couple... There was like 3 things grouped off kind of underneath, kind of in their own group, and they were like 25 extra cents if you wanted that in your meal. And I know, well, okay, so first of all, I knew one of them was tongue. I know lengua. One of them I did not know. So I took out my phone and I was like, What is this word? What is say so? Oh, they're serving brains here. And that's how you know They are not advertising. They are not trying to be friendly towards the white American palate in the slightest. That's when I felt truly safe. I ended up getting carnitas because I was in the mood. And it was kind of expensive. It was probably like $2 or $3 more expensive than it should have been. But, you know, the economy is the way it is. And hey, I'm Mr. Moneybags. So I got 2 tacos for like $10. And to be fair, I was full like the entire day off of those 2 tacos. I got a jarritos. I don't want to be the fucking guy that overpronounces like foreign words, but it is really fun to go jarritos. I got a like, what am I gonna say? Jarritos? I feel a little dumb saying that. It's like Doritos. So that's my story about how you know it's authentic. That's genuinely a good litmus test. Is do they serve fucking like tripa at the restaurant? Anyway, I've had tons of time on my hands in the week that during my week's break after finishing the video. The last video, the horror one, the Japanese horror games video, was really intense. That took me like 2 months, and I was working a lot during it. So I've been relaxing. A couple things happened, but before we get into that, all the games and all the movies I watched, I wanna get into, that's right, the comment review. Now you can leave a question down below if you wanna ask me a question, and I'll get to it next time. But our first question and only question comes from Ryan Frisia 1132. That's his birth year, actually. Okay, so first of all, Ryan starts off with something that blew my goddamn mind. I talked about Stone Ocean last podcast, and he leaves a correction. So I had said, oh, well, Poochie and Weather are both mixed race. Because, you know, Poochie's... You know, you watch the anime and you read the manga, and you're like, oh, well, Poochie's, like, black, and Weather is, you know, he's, like... Weather and Perla are fair-skinned. They're light-skinned. And, their mom is clearly, like, white. And the dad, especially in the anime, looks distinctly black, which I think he was not even depicted in the manga. Revealed to me, slight correction, Weather's adopted dad is black. His mother swapped her dead, mixed baby with Weather, but kept it a secret. That's why the clan thinks he is mixed, and why dating Perla is an issue. This means Poochie is not black. His parents are white. We see this in the manga. Otherwise, the clan stuff doesn't make too much sense. I'm going to be honest, when I read the clan stuff, I just kind of... It is kind of confusing and weird. When I first read the manga, I just kind of thought... My rationale was... I guess Araki... I don't know, he's Japanese. Maybe he just doesn't get it. Poochie is just dark. And I know many people try to say this to erase Poochie's blackness, but it is not supposed... it is not supported in any way but how he is shaded. Maybe it's an ironic twist of fate that the clan go along with a white man who looks black rather than a white passing man they think is black. There's no logic to racism anyway, and you could probably make a really interesting reading on the absurdity of racists that I'll only allude to and not make right now. Now, him being very Italian and Catholic would be an issue for the racists, but that's such an intricacy of the clan that I doubt Araki knew. So this blew my goddamn mind, and I was like, Jojo Poochie not black. And I kept looking, and I was like, is there anything to support him actually having any, like, African heritage? No. He's Italian. He's not black. Like, okay, I guess he could be, like, Mediterranean with African descent, but his whole family is just Italian. Now, there's a joke in here about Italians and whiteness, but I won't make that one. Instead, I will make a joke about a concept I thought of during while I was doing this, where I was like, do you think there's anyone out there who's like, black people were the real Romans? they're just they're just like they're like black Israelites. They're standing in Times Square being like, we're the real Sicilians. We built the Colosseum. there is, I don't think that can be true, simply because I don't think that the world would have survived if there was an actual combination of soul food and Italian food. I think we'd all be dead by now. But yeah, this was kind of shocking to me to learn, because I've always so the manga has always colored him in as, okay, so I think that some people have misconceptions about the JoJo colored manga. And I was talking to my friend who like literally got me into JoJo, and she did not actually know what the deal with the colored manga is. So if you all the color scans of them, so when the manga is published, Araki draws the whole thing in black and white. A couple special pages, volume covers and some chapter covers, he will color himself, and he has a very distinctive approach to colors in his illustrations. The colored manga is not done by Araki, but it is official. It is done by Shueisha, who gets some team together to digitally color in the scans of the manga. This was done to make the series easier to read on phones. I want to say this started around 2013, 2012 or 2013, when the anime was coming out. And I think Shueisha made a big push to like, hey, go read the JoJo manga on our app. And part of that was like understanding that sometimes black and white artwork, especially Araki's, which can be very intricate, can be difficult to read on a small phone screen. So they digitally colored it in to add more, a gentler contrast. So whenever if you look at the original black and white manga, Pucci is definitely shaded in much darker. It's a little more ambiguous. He looks like he has he could have a tan of some sort. I was wrong. I'm just looking at images now. The father does appear. His dad does appear. But in the manga, he is colored in like blank white, like the same color as their mom. So there is a possibility, maybe, but any of Pucci's actual African heritage is actually just headcanon at this point. The colored manga made him much darker than Araki will. If you look up, there's a couple of illustrations where Araki does, in fact, draw Pucci with colors. And he is certainly like a tan. He's a tan, but it's not like that dark. It's much lighter. It's much, much lighter than you'll see in the colored manga or the anime, which follows the colored manga's color choices much closer in regards to his complexion. And so I have to now reckon with the fact that Pucci is not black. He's just Sicilian. We were the real Godfathers. Wow, what a fucking weird revelation. I've gone this whole time thinking that. But yeah, everything else follows the manga color scans. Anyway, the comment continues on to the actual questions. More cat episodes, please. In fact, no more Taigen. This is a cat podcast now. Question time. Over, under, and accurately rated ArcSys characters. Now, this one was tricky for its own reason. I always preempt these responses because I have a hard time committing or being harsh, I guess. Specifically on the overrated ArcSys characters. I'll start with accurately rated first. I think Soul Bad Guy is exactly as cool as everyone says he is, which is to say he's really cool. Lore-wise, he's cool. His personality is cool. There's like 1,000,001 awesome illustrations of him. Gameplay wise, he has like always been super sick. Soul is rarely, if ever, top tier. He's usually top tier in like version 1 of whatever Guilty Gear game. But as the game goes on, he tends to fall towards more towards a mid tier, maybe upper mid. And yet you still see Soul players topping events all the time because Soul is just equipped with all of these core fundamental tools of the game and some wacky shit. And he's the type of character who scales with your skill very intensely. The ceiling on Soul Bad Guy in like every Guilty Gear game has always been huge. And you get to see people do awesome stuff with him because they just fucking love that wild ass dude. I say he is accurately rated in all regards. Okay. Overrated. I really had a hard time coming up with an overrated ArcSys character for the reason that I don't know. I kind of see it with basically everyone who comes to mind. Okay, so first of all, we say ArcSys characters. We're usually saying BlazBlue and Guilty Gear, and no one's talking about Battle Fantasia. Although there's some cool character designs in that game. I would say, when I look at the whole Guilty Gear cast, there's characters I like less, there's characters I like more, but I wouldn't say I straight up despise anyone, especially not any character who's like really well liked, for instance. I like Happy Chaos as a character. He's a scourge gameplay wise, but as a character, I think he's fun. He was a fun antagonist. And so I had to go to... I see the appeal of basically I can understand why every Guilty Gear character could be someone's favorite, that you just really resonate with them for one reason or another. Then I went to BlazBlue, which is a series that I have been, in the past, a lot more iffy with in terms of its character designs. And I must say, BlazBlue has a lot of winners. Even the ones that I think are boring and lack a lot of personality. I don't give a fuck about Celica, but I can see someone looking at her and going, oh, she's cute. And so I really racked my brain, not just to find the only way that I could find, because I don't think BlazBlue characters I don't think it's possible for them to be overrated in the traditional sense. Like, just the fan base is not big enough. And from what I've experienced with the BlazBlue community, there isn't really I don't know, they seem like every character's popularity feels fairly proportional to how interesting or cool I think they are. So I don't really have an issue with that. So I took a bit of a different approach to this. I was like, okay, I don't think there's anyone who is notably overrated. So let's say instead of an overrated character, there is one character in BlazBlue that I would call overrated simply because I don't think it is even possible to rate them well accurately. I simply don't think they have any appeal at all. And that character is Mew 12. I think Mew 12 might have the worst design in the entire series. If you don't remember her, she's like one of the 3 robot girls, except her design is really fucking stupid looking. I think she looks awful. She is weird and bulky in her extremities. She has and then suddenly you get to the torso and head and she's skimpy pretty anime girl. She has a completely exposed, from her, literally from her, they barely cover up her vagina with a little, what the fuck even is that? It's a little bolt-on cover? Her whole ass is out. And then from literally the vajayjay up to the bottom of her breasts is just naked. It is such an unappealing, it's such a shitty, sexy design. I can't believe it. It is trying so hard to be like arousing in like the dumbest, least appealing way ever. I genuinely think that if you get turned on by Mu-12, you are a caveman. I think that you are falling back on some kind of ancient like genetic response. Some kind of ancient genetic response from when the supervolcano exploded and we had to fuck like crazy to keep the human species alive. Like a gajillion years ago. And you have not risen above the level of your ancestors. I think that if you think that Mu-12 is hot, there is genuinely something lower about the way that you perceive other human beings. I cannot accept that anyone likes this character at all. Categorically, any rating of her that is above bottom shit tier is wrong. She is overrated because she cannot possibly be underrated. My answer is Mu-12. Now, for an underrated character, I would say, and this is going to blow your fucking mind, I am going to say Baiken from Guilty Gear. And by extension, Anji. And it's not for the reason you're like, what the fuck? She gets all this merch and all this stuff. No, the reason that I think she is underrated is that when people overrate Baiken, they are doing so because she has like big tits, right? Like she gets a lot of attention and merchandise and fan art and stuff because she has big tits and she's a hot, tough samurai lady with big boobies. And what people fail to even realize is the actual interesting symbolism going on with Baiken's character and Anji's by extension. And I'm going to jump into a little Guilty Gear lore here. Okay, so in the Guilty Gear world, Soul's big fucking dragon wife Justice super giga nuked Japan and turned it into a whole crater in the ocean. Japan does not exist anymore, and all Japanese refugees live in an isolated colony that's just called the Japan Colony. It's completely locked down. No one gets in, no one gets out. If you leave the Japan Colony, you can never come back. You are gone. You are exiled forever. Now, we do have a couple stages that take place there because of course we do. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense lore-wise, but sure. And whenever we get a glimpse into the Japan Colony, it is super traditionalist. Like, Guilty Gear takes place in, 2155 or something? And if you look at anywhere else in the world, other countries like America, much of which America is still like a fucking wasteland, right? From the war and stuff. But there are highly modern parts of America. There are highly modern parts of other countries as well, like Illyria and other urban places that we see where people are, interweaving technology and magic and there's all sorts of modern living going on in the rest of the world. You go to Japan and it is super conservative, traditional in terms of dress, in terms of decoration and architecture. Japan, basically, in response to the destruction of their country, the surviving Japanese people have sort of reflexively returned with a vide to traditional Japanese culture. Including, and I think that the no one gets in, no one goes out thing, I think that policy is kind of a reference to, one, Japanese isolationism, but also Japan's proclivity for xenophobia. That's how I kind of read it. Now, let's take the two Japanese characters. Are there other ones? Mei is Japanese. Is Asuka? Maybe it's a Japanese first name and a German last name. Oh, does he have an Italian middle name? Let's take Anji and Baiken, the two, very clearly Japanese characters. I think Mei was, an orphan or something, or she was left out. I actually don't know how Mei got out of the colony. Baiken is a female samurai, a traditionally male role. And there is this, I think Baiken has some quote, and it draws on this kind of old trope in samurai stories that, like, once a woman has killed someone, she is no longer a woman. I'm pretty sure Baiken says that in one of her win quotes. So she is this female samurai who is quote unquote no longer a woman because of this path she's chosen to take. And then you have Anji, who is a male fan dancer, a traditionally feminine role in Japanese society. Both of these characters have chosen to leave the colony where they can never come back. They can never return. And they are both taking on roles that are inversions of the traditional Japanese archetypes for their, like, genders, right? And it just feels to me like there's a very clear symbolism going on here that Anji and Baiken are non-conforming men. They're a non-conforming man and woman. They are specifically, like, in regards to Japanese culture. And I don't know if no one picks up on that because they're not Japanese or something. But I think it has to do with the fact that Baiken has big boobies and Anji has, like, 8-pack, 12-pack abs. So they just think, to us, we just see Baiken and we go, whoa, booby samurai lady. But the cultural context of, like, this, she is a subversive character for her archetype, and same with Anji, is maybe lost on non-Japanese people. And I think that that's actually kind of one of the most interesting parts of their characters and their dynamics. And I think it's a shame that it is usually glossed over because, big boob, big ab. And also, why all those fucking people were frauds when Bridget came out and Strive, literally and metaphorically. Is that a metaphor? I'm not sure, but you know what I mean. And there were people saying, this is the only gender non-conforming male representation. Anji was in there. Anji was in there before. He was in 2000. He was in there in Guilty Gear X. Okay? Guilty Gear X, by your side, G Gear. He was in there. He's not the first. Bridget is not the first gender non-conforming male representation in Guilty Gear. Fucking Venom was there. What? Venom was there. Fucking Zato was there. What? What are you talking about? What do you... you people are frauds. You're hack frauds. Yeah, it's always it's something that I've come to appreciate about Baiken's character. And that's why I am saying that she is underrated. Underrated, and she and Anji are that. Okay, let's make it more palatable. I'll say Anji's underrated. Anyway, I was just in the bathroom because I had to take a quick break. That's where I go to take a break, I guess. And I'm back. I'm calmed down. I want to talk a bit about a very quick, subtle news story with absolutely no fanfare. Sega has canceled the Super Game. Okay, everyone, I know everyone was really looking forward to this, but I'm sorry. It's gone. It's done for. I'm of course joking because you're probably thinking to yourself, what was the Super Game? So, like, back in 2023, Sega had this one financial report where they said, they were talking about, they're talking about their plans for the future. And they said, we're working on a super game. And everyone said, what does that mean, Sega? And they said, it's a super game. As the name implies, a super game involves the concept of a game that stands head and shoulders above normal games. I encourage stakeholders to look forward to the fruit of our efforts, which include R&D to create a game that builds a whole worldview involving the entire gaming ecosystem, including not only players, but also streamers who stream the game and their viewers. What the fuck does that mean, Kobe Bryant? No one knows, and we never found out, and we maybe never will. Because in their most recent quarterly financial report, there is a really quick, subtle bullet point on one of the slides. It's this is about page 32 of their 2026 Q4 presentation. Review of the Games as a Service strategy, the GAS strategy. So they progress through fiscal year 2026 quarter 3, and they're like, well, the new free-to-play titles like Sonic Rumble Party struggled. We didn't get as much profit out of our collaboration with Rovio. I guess they did some Angry Bird stuff. Some of our titles got delayed. Also, we decided to cancel the Super Game. It is capitalized like a proper noun, which is really funny to me. And then asterisk, no additional costs associated with the cancellation, which I find funny. So, what was the Super Game? Who knows? It was probably some kind of games as a service thing because it's on this slide. It might have been some kind of big, probably some big online thing because they talked about streamers. We have no idea. But to be honest, this is probably for the best that it's getting canceled. It seems that, as detailed in the rest of this report, they didn't cut staff or anything. They didn't incur a ton of losses. They might have incurred losses, but it doesn't seem like enough that they're like, let's fucking lay off a bunch of people. Which, granted, they are a Japanese company. They don't tend to do that. They're just putting them to work on different things in the company. So, okay, cool. No harm, no foul, I guess. I think that this is probably the right move in light of what we've been observing with other companies' historic failures to capitalize on the games as a service market. What I find funny is that I am now seeing people unironically use or maybe I don't know if it can be used in any way other than a joke, using the phrase quadruple A. Which literally originated from that guy from Ubisoft Singapore, just bullshitting and trying to claim that Skull and Bones was going to be a huge deal for marketing purposes because they spent so much goddamn money on that game. They sunk so much money into it over 8 years or something that they had to market it like the biggest, best thing. And he just said some stupid words. But now the phrase quadruple A has entered people's lexicon. I think that it's best if we use quadruple A in this very specific way, which will inevitably not work out because people always broaden and flatten vocabulary. But to me, quadruple A refers to all other categories are legitimate ways of talking about the scope and budget and staff sizes of games. Quadruple A to me is what you say when a game is clearly so big that there is no way it could ever make its money back and it is destined to be a failure. It is quite literally Skull and Bones, a project which has gotten so far away, so far off track from the hands of anyone who could have brought this into a realistic, profitable end goal and end product. That it is basically, it's like the Titanic. It's like a Titanic the size of the ocean. It cannot move anywhere without crashing into the shores. So focusing their attention away from that on towards smaller projects, probably a good idea for Sega. All right. That's all the news that I felt was relevant. Very short news segment. I don't know, I've been maxing and relaxing as of recent. I guess there was that. Okay, there was that Imagine Dragons game. Did you guys hear about that? It's called. What was it called? This is not a bit. I cannot remember. Hang on. Imagine Dragons game. Last Flag. It's called Last Flag. It is a $15 not live service thing. It's like, I think it might be getting some updates, but it's actually just like a $15 online game. You buy it and you play it. I don't think it has microtransactions. Funny enough, it's everything that a lot of people have been asking for. However, it is kind of doomed to fail for a couple reasons. So number one, it is a hero shooter, or that's how it's usually talked about. So the reason it's called Last Flag is because it's kind of like you took the bones of a hero shooter, but the main game mode is capture the flag, which, as I understand, actually, it seems to play pretty well. The reason this is called the Imagine Dragons game is because the lead singer of Imagine Dragons is the lead producer on it. This has been one of his dream projects for years, is to make a capture the flag video game. It looks fine. Like, visually, the style is very kind of what you'd expect out of a, I don't know, it's kind of Fortnite-y. Seems like it plays well enough. Has some neat capture the flag things going on. I don't know. I just feel like the whole market's kind of oversaturated. I don't know. that came out. I cannot imagine. Sometimes something's failure is as simple as no one was really feeling it. And I think it's a bit of a shame, because he seems genuinely passionate about this silly game. And I don't think it's going to do very well. And I do kind of feel bad for that. Anyway, I'm going to get into all the movies I watched recently. So first of all, for Mother's Day, I took my mom to go see The Sheep Detectives. Now, The Sheep Detectives is a brand new movie about sheep detectives. The Sheep Detectives is about, what is his name? Hugh Jackman, who is not a sheep nor a detective. He's actually a shepherd. And he lives out in the British countryside with his flock and in the small town, and he gets murdered. Oh, I should preface this by saying he reads the sheep murder mysteries at night, and the sheep can all talk to each other, and they can understand what humans say, but they cannot communicate with people. So those are our talking animal rules. He reads them murder mysteries, and then he gets murdered. Waha! So the sheep decide that they need to solve the mystery of his murder, while there is this like bumbling local policeman who is the funniest character in the movie, bumbling his way through his job. The Sheep Detectives is delightful. It's a very fun family film. How many F's is that in a row? Like 3? It's a very fun family film. It was surprisingly intense at a couple times. I wasn't expecting the movie to have... its main themes were about, like, accepting outsiders into a community, or else, like, it's really hurtful to exclude people who are different for no fucking reason. That's, like, one of the main morals. The other main moral, or message or lesson, is, like, learning to grow up and understanding that death exists. And it got a little, like, heavier than I was expecting, because, like, the sheep don't understand that death is real. They learn that death can happen to humans, but they're like, well, that doesn't happen to sheep. Now let me tell you, when they all have a conversation about how sheep don't die, something crazy is going to happen later in the movie that's going to cause a very heavy, sad scene to occur. There were a lot of kids in the theater because this is a perfect Mother's Day movie. The reason I took my mom to it is because she loves murder mysteries and she likes cute animals. And I was like, this is perfect. And yeah, she loved it. So mission accomplished. But there was a lot of people there with the whole family, including young kids. And there were scenes of pretty intense animal on animal violence that I was like, ooh, ow. Ugh. And I think kids can handle it. I think it's good for kids to get exposed to kind of slightly rough things. There's some quote, I don't remember who said it, but it was like, you can go about as dark as you want to in a kid's movie, obviously within reason, as long as it has a happy ending. If there's a happy ending and everything wraps up nicely at the end, a kid generally can handle it. They can be like, okay, there's trials and tribulations and difficulty in life, but hey, it all works out in the end. Okay. That's a much more palatable message for a child to get them used to maybe heavier themes, darker themes. And yeah, the movie does have a happy ending. But there was a couple points I was like, ooh, I know there's some parents in the audience who are like, oh God, I hope this doesn't scare the fuck out of my kid. But I liked it. It was good though. It's a cute movie. It's genuinely, I found it very funny. It's not reinventing the wheel or anything. But I absolutely love the stupid policeman character. He's just like a completely incompetent dumbass trying to solve this case. And there's a lot of really easy, stupid guy jokes, but the script and also his performance, it's not like a really canned dumb guy joke character. He's kind of doing his own thing with it. His delivery's kind of weird. He really shouldn't have this job. He isn't confident or that good at speaking or really good at anything. And every scene he's in is a delight. I will say, the twist of the movie actually caught me off guard. Now, granted, I'm not usually great at calling the twist in movies because, well, to be honest, I don't usually think that much about it. When I watch anything that's like a mystery, I tend to sort of let it take me for the ride. And I usually it might be a weakness of mine in watching mystery stories, but I usually just kind of let whatever happens happen. But by the end, there's a reveal that made me realize, and I like that they didn't call attention to it. There is a really obvious clue as to who the murderer is that actually recurs throughout the entire movie. They basically spell it out for you if you, on a rewatch, if you just kind of pay attention to some details of a few of the characters. It's actually incredibly obvious, and they're telling you in the death, when they find the body. What to look out for. But it doesn't make sense unless you take, one extra step in logic. Because it's not an obvious thing. It's slightly it's like a slightly visual thing where you're like, oh my God, that was literally staring at me the entire time. And yeah, it actually got me. I thought it was delightful. Believe the hype. Next up, Kat made me watch all of the Ice Age movies. So, I have always had I think I have the relationship that most people have with Ice Age films, the Ice Age film franchise, which is that they are movies that exist. I kind of like, I like the squirrel bits, the scrat sorts, the little squirrel trying to get the nut. That's fun. It feels like a classic, like Warner Brothers cartoon or something. But I have never held them in particularly high esteem. What I did not know about my girlfriend after being with her for almost 5 years, come next... Hang on, how do the months go? Come 2 months. 5 years in July. I did not know that not only is Kat a fan of this series, she's a bona fide Ice Age freak. So we watched the first one, and I kind of fell asleep during it. Because I was tired anyway, and I was like, it's Ice Age. Like, she's not going to care. This can't be that important to her. We move on to the second Ice Age movie. What is it called? I don't even remember. Melting? It's not... I think Boiling Point's the next one? They're still making them. The studio died, and they're still making these fucking things. The second one. And she goes to get her copy, her physical like DVD copy of it to put it in the Xbox. And she takes it out and it's super scratched up. And I was like, how many times did you watch this movie? And she told me that when she was a kid and Ice Age 2 came out, she wanted to see it so badly and her parents never let her. They never took her to see Ice Age 2. To make up for it, her dad took her shopping, and the first plushie she ever picked out was Sid the Sloth. That's where it all started. That's where it all went wrong. Was with Ice Age 2. And then afterwards, she went to McDonald's to get a Happy Meal so she could get the Ice Age toys. Kat, to this day, is a 24-year-old grown woman, and I still go to McDonald's with her and she gets 2 Happy Meals. 5 years in July. So I was like, oh, damn, okay. And then for Christmas, she got the movie on DVD. And she's like, yeah, I watched it a lot as a kid. So it's super scratched up. She puts it in the Xbox. We start playing it. And the movie gets 5 minutes in and the disc just fucking kills itself. It just freezes. And it's pretty clear that we're not getting anywhere with this disc. Like, it's dead. And I just kind of throw up my hands and I'm like, well, I guess we can't watch Ice Age 2. And she goes, well, good thing I have another copy. Good thing I have a second copy of Ice Age 2 on DVD. And she takes it out and it is also scratched to shit. And I'm like, babe, tell me again how much you watched Ice Age. And she goes, oh, well, I watched it like every day after I got it. And I was like, for how long? And she goes, maybe 2 to 3 times. And I was like, okay, that's not how I was expecting you to answer that. How many days, like, how long did this go on? And she's like, probably 6 months. So she was watching Ice Age. Let's see. 180 times 3. She watched Ice Age 2 540 times in 6 months when she was a little baby. So we put the disc in, and the reason she has a second copy is because her parents had to buy a second copy. She destroyed the disc and said, no, I want more. So she puts it in, and we watch it. We end up watching the third one and the fourth and fifth on a later date. So now I have opinions on the Ice Age film franchise. Now, I'm going to say something that might sound crazy. It might sound crazy what I'm about to say. But I think Ice Age is underrated in a minor way. It doesn't make me happy to say this. How long can I keep this going? The Minions. The Ice Age movies are not as bad as I thought. And to be honest, it makes a lot of sense. I think if they were actually that bad, I don't think that they would have gotten this far. In truth, the Ice Age movies are fine. They are generally fine. Like, you can put them... Every time she put one on, I was not looking forward to it. And then by the end, I was like, that was fine. You know, there was a couple fun things. I like the slapstick. I'm a sucker for some good slapstick comedy. And, you know, some good stuff in Ice Age. You know, the Scrat stuff is fun. I don't like it when they hurt him too badly, though. It makes me scared that his eyeballs are going to pop out of his skull, and that kind of stresses me out when they squash him like that. Pretty much and also the other thing is, I kind of underrated the amount of variety in the Ice Age franchise. In my head, every movie was, we need to find a new home. Like the intro of Tetris Worlds, if you've ever played that. When all the Tetrises have to find a new planet. But that's only like 2 of them, actually. The first movie is that they gotta get a baby back to these humans who never appear again. It's really weird. The humans never appear again in the series. And it's strange. Anyway, the second one is we have to find a new home because the ice caps are melting. Yeah, talk my collar. The third one is... That's the fucking dinosaur one, right? The third one, it's like Journey to the Center of the Earth, where their friend Sid gets kidnapped by a dinosaur, and they have to go save him, and Ray Romano, Mammoth's wife, is pregnant. The fourth movie is a pirate story, which is also partially we have to find a new home. The fifth movie is that there's a meteor that's gonna hit the Earth and wipe out like everyone, and they have to go on a little adventure to figure out how to stop the meteor from hitting the Earth. And also Drake is there. Wait, which one is he in? No, he's in the fourth one. He's in the pirate one. Drake is there. Nicki Minaj is there. They could have done celebrity voices for these. What do I say about Ice Age? There's a decent amount of variety. Sometimes there are fun things that happen. You know what? I got to a point in the last movie where I was like, I feel like they're kind of flanderizing Manny the Mammoth. There's this weird... It's like, okay, this is kind of like a sitcom or something where they always reset to the status quo in one way or another. The characters are... Like, they change in little ways over the course of the movies, but they kind of have a lot of the same inherent flaws that drive most of the conflicts. Sid is stupid. Diego is a bit of a loner, but he learns to hunt with the herd. And Manny doesn't like change. That's his like thing in the first movie. He's like, why do I give a fuck about this baby? Oh, okay, I guess I will. Oh, I learned a lesson. the second movie's like they gotta move. He's gotta. This is kind of a recurring thing, even when he's not the driving force of the conflict or the inter-character conflict. Manny kind of doesn't like change. Eventually, they have a kid, and she is like this rambunctious, rebellious teenager, and he is overly protective of her, which, makes sense for his character to be a protective dad because he's scared of the rest of the world. He was like a loner for a really long time, so he's like, the world is harsh. You gotta be careful, and I don't want her to go through that and all that. And he fucking hates her fiance, who's played by, I don't remember that guy. He's played by a guy. Her fiance. And there's a really weird moment where, like, okay, it's not just that he is afraid of letting her go, but the wife, I can't remember her name because I'm a sexist against female mammoths. His wife, Ellie, that's her name, is also scared of their daughter leaving. And they're like, there's a moment where Manny is like, let's try to, do you think we can break them up and she'll never be able to leave us? And I was like, and he's like maniacally laughing about it. And I was like, damn, this feels like not in character for Manny. I don't know, why would he do that? He's always been resistant to change and very protective of other people that he cares about. That's kind of his thing, is he's like, at the start, he's like, I don't make connections with other people. But once he does, he's like, you're my ride or die. I don't want anything bad to happen to you. And I guess there's a bit of a parallel with the way that he took care of the baby in the first movie to like, okay, well now he's got an actual kid. And, hang on, is Ice Age just American Tokyo Godfathers? Whoa, wait. Hang on. I'm writing that down. That's going to be the title of the podcast. Sid's the crossdresser. I was like, I don't like how they're writing Manny in this one. I have opinions on Ice Age. But yeah, they're completely serviceable family films. You know what I will say? Okay, the fourth one, the pirate one, has some fun stuff. I think the pirate stuff is fun. I think all the stuff at home, it's like the core dude trio of Manny, Diego, and Sid. They get separated. The ice wall is advancing, right? What is it? Pangea's splitting. I think that's what it is. And so the tectonic plates are shifting, and their home is getting like encroached upon by a giant tectonic plate wall. So the three dudes get separated, and then the ladies at home, they gotta lead the relocation effort. And along the way, the teenage daughter, her name is Peaches, she learns about the meaning of friendship, and you gotta stick by your friends and all that. And it's like, okay, whatever. That was very boring to me. The pirate stuff that Manny and co got up to was fun, because there was a fun idea. Like they use when I say pirates, their ships are like giant floating iceberg chunks. Like, that's a cool idea. That's neat. They basically take the materials available to them, like vines and animal bones and wood and logs and stuff like that, and all these natural sort of unprocessed materials, and they make pirate ships and mechanisms out of it, like engineering and all that stuff. And that's pretty cool. Like, they have a badger, the villain pirates, they have a badger who is black, but the white on his back forms a skull and bones and crossbones. And so he climbs up to the top of the mast and he like hangs off of it to be the Jolly Roger flag. Like, that's fun. That's a fun little visual idea. Peter Dinklage is the monkey villain. He is the monkey villain, And I don't usually say this about characters. I usually don't say this in general after watching a movie, but I feel like he's very miscast in that role. I didn't like a single line delivery he had as the monkey pirate. Like, Tim Curry would have killed that role, but Peter Dinklage kind of struggles to be that, like, delightfully evil character. He doesn't have that enough, like, glee in it. I don't know, there's just something about it, and I didn't even know it was Dinklage before this. Or for, like, half the movie, I didn't even know it was Peter Dinklage, so this isn't me comparing his other roles. Like, I'm sometimes bad at picking out celebrity voice actors. So I'm not being like, oh, I picture him as being the Game of Thrones guy. No, I just think that I'm sure he could do well in voice acting with proper direction and maybe for a more fitting role, but I don't know. I just felt like he was never leaning into it enough in the ways that I feel like a really charming, charismatic pirate captain leader character should. And it was sort of distracting, and it took away from my enjoyment of the film. I felt like he never really knew what he was doing with the role. Contrast that to Simon Pegg, who plays the, like, lost world... What is he, like a ferret? Buck? He's like Buck Danger. He lives in dinosaur land, and he's like this little ferret who fights dinosaurs, and he's like missing an eye. And they got Simon Pegg to improv a trans joke, which was crazy. Like, we were watching it, and there's a moment where he's like, let me tell you about how I used a clamshell to turn a T-Rex into a T-Rachel. And we were like, whoa, Simon Pegg, slow down, brother. Yeah, I don't know. Ice Age is fine. They're fine. There's worse movies your kid could make you sit down and watch than Ice Age. But there are also better ones that they could make you sit down and watch, such as the works of Dario Argento. That's right. Your kid is into Dario Argento. So after the last video when I talked about Clock Tower, a game which had heavy inspirations, drawing on the works of Dario Argento, I got interested in actually watching some of those films for myself. When I was making the video, I was confident enough to include that in the script and all that for a couple of reasons without having seen those movies, namely that, like, the creator of Clock Tower cited it directly, and also that there's just so many similarities, and you can literally just watch a trailer for Suspiria and Phenomena and be like, okay, yeah, these are... Okay, I think I get it. It is very blatant. I went and actually watched those because they look cool. I've heard about him and his work for quite a while. So I watched 3 of his movies, Phenomena, Suspiria, and Deep Red. All of them were wonderful. Phenomena is a really cool movie. It stars Jennifer Connelly, who's like 15 in the film, which is crazy, because she's really good. Jennifer Connelly, she's like the daughter of this Italian movie star, and she gets sent away to this boarding school in Switzerland, I want to say. Yeah, Switzerland. I have a fondness for that kind of like Western European countryside of that region, Switzerland, Germany, and so on. Suspiria also takes place in Germany. And I love those. I love the big sweeping mountain shots, Sound of Music type thing. So I love the location. And the plot is basically about her. Basically, she goes to this boarding school. I should mention, she has a psychic connection to insects. Insects, they're very calm around her. She kind of causes like strange reactions in them sometimes. She can subtly manipulate them. and they can sort of communicate with her, not like telepathically, but through like they will make it clear that they want to tell her, they want to show her something, kind of thing. There is a killer on the loose in the area, and she soon becomes a target of this killer. She also fucking hates being at this boarding school. So she and Donald Pleasance, the doctor from Halloween, have to work together. Donald Pleasance has a cool monkey sidekick who is awesome. This movie has some of the greatest monkey crash out scenes ever put to film. And they did it with a real monkey. None of that CGI, Andy Serkis bullshit. They got a real monkey to go fucking nuts on camera. And it's awesome. That monkey is my hero. Monkey with the assist call is one of the most hyped things I've ever seen in a film. Anyway, yeah, the movie is absolutely phenomenal. It is... Okay, so I should mention, there are a couple ways that you can watch it. I think that the best way to watch it is the original Italian cut, and if you're going to watch it in English, with the English dub. Now, it was the standard in a lot of European films, because Europe is so multilingual, that they would... Because dubbing was so common in Europe, that you'd have to dub something into multiple languages, they would film without any sound, actually. I think most things were done in post. Like, sound effects were done in post. Music, well, obviously music's done in post. And all the dialogue is done in post via ADR. Including the Italian dub. Now, one of the neat things about Phenomena is that because it stars two American or English-speaking actors, I should say, they do their own voices in the English dub, and they are both really good, and they perfectly lip sync everything. So that's great. They give two really good performances. The reason that there is an Italian cut and I think an American cut is because when it got released in America as Creepers, it was a couple scenes were cut out. Some of them I get. There is one scene that's kind of uncomfortable that feels like there is there's a threat with Jennifer Connelly's character. There is sort of a threat of like rape against her. I don't know if that's exactly what Argento was going for, but I can see why it was cut out for the American release. If, assuming Americans are babies. I mean, she is like 15. Because it is definitely uncomfortable. She's doing a really good job of acting like she's in distress, and nothing happens. But, yeah, for a couple of them are like weird. Like, I don't know why they cut these parts out. They, and for those sections of the English dub, or if you watch it, the original cut with the English dub, the movie will just drop back into Italian for a bit, and you'll actually notice the audio quality change, which is funny. But that's the way I think you should watch it, because there are things that are like parts of scenes that I think are relatively important to understanding what the hell is going on that are cut out of the American release, which is annoying. So Italian cut, English dub, I think is probably the best way to watch it if you're watching it in English. Yeah, but the movie's really good. It has a fucking crazy soundtrack by, I think it's a German band called Goblin. There's also a crazy scene. There's a chase scene that's set to an Iron Maiden song, Flash of the Blade, I think. That's like, at first it's really weird, but then it really works. And it only shows up for like a minute. It's very funny. I don't want to spoil too much, but Argento is a fantastic horror director. He is great at building tension through mostly what you aren't seeing. He really understands how and where to place the camera and how to light a scene to make it incredibly tense and scary. He understands negative space and how to frame a shot in such a way where you are always just biting your nails about what's around the corner, what's just outside the frame. There's and this applies to all of his movies. There's a shot in Deep Red, which isn't even a horror movie, where you're just seeing the entrance of a doorway and a character walks through and you kind of see them walk down the steps and the camera just holds on him. Or sorry, it just holds on the doorway as he's like walking down into like this basement area, and you can kind of see him in the corner. It's not a very deep basement. And the whole time, just the fact that we're lingering on this shot that seemingly doesn't have a lot going on is so fucking nerve-wracking. Because you're like, why are we seeing this? It's like he really understands how to use the visual language of film to suggest things, to kind of prey on the fact that, you know how movies kind of look. If you're seeing a shot, it implies that something is going to happen. And then he shows you all this stuff and you're like, what's happening? What's gonna happen? What's going on? And then nothing happens. And you're just like, fuck, dude, you gotta stop doing this. It's on full display in Phenomena. Great performances, really great cinematography, really cool setting, cool music. The ending of the film is the ending of the film just gets crazier and crazier and crazier. It has an amazing payoff. It's really good, a lot of fun. I will say, if you're a little squeamish about bugs on camera, this is not the movie for you. A lot of this movie is Jennifer Connelly with bugs crawling on her. It's just like on her hand and in her palm and all this stuff. And if those visuals freak you out too much, it's going to be a rough watch. Then on to Suspiria, which is kind of often grouped. It's one of his most famous movies for good reason. It looks incredibly good on Twitter screenshots for, film aesthetic accounts or that kind of bullshit. Suspiria, funny enough, has a very similar setup to Phenomena. It's a young lady who is sent off to a boarding school in, this time, Germany, but, very similar kind of vibes. A few differences. She is being sent there of her own free will because it's a dance academy. She's going there to study dance. This is like the best dance academy in Europe or something, or it's one of the top schools ever. So she gets sent there, and immediately, shit's weird. Stuff is very strange. There is something unusual and perhaps unnatural happening at this school, and you are made aware of that every single second. I think that the most iconic part of Suspiria is easily its visuals, which the film is worth watching just for those alone. It is absolutely captivating every single moment. I have never seen the movie before, but man, I think about like the way that I like to color correct my videos, and I there's a lot of appeal in Suspiria for me. It is an intensely emotional film in its visuals. Argento uses color and lighting to, in almost a romantic way, like capital R romantic way, to make, like, in a literal sense, to visually communicate to you the mood and the emotion of the scene. Changes in emotion, peaks in emotion, downswings, weird moods and stuff like that. It reminds me a lot. The closest analogy I can think of is the JoJo anime, which keeps a relatively consistent color palette. You know what's funny? I wonder if Araki is inspired at all by Suspiria. He's a big... Hey, actually, I just made this connection. Okay. So Dario Argento, it's his name, right? Dio's father is named Dario Brando. Is that that might very well be a reference to Argento? Also, given the fact that Phantom Blood is a heavily like gothic horror inspired part, the very first arc of JoJo, and part 3 is super horror inspired, and he seems like he was into a lot of international film in the 80s. And then, when he talks about the way that he colors his manga, one of the coolest things about Araki's colored illustrations has been that he has no set color palette. He draws the manga in black and white, and then when he does choose to color an illustration, he colors them based on the mood that the piece is meant to evoke. I think of that iconic piece of Giorno with all of the flower petals. And he's in this he has this golden hair and this soft pink colored outfit, and the background is this absolutely gorgeous shade of a sky blue, this light blue, and the pink and blue contrast is so pleasing and soothing and powerful. You get this really strong sense for who Giorno is. He's elegant but strong. I think of that image, the picture of Jolene, kind of reclining forward in the wetland, the Florida wetlands, and it's very green and orange. There's this feeling of heat. She's very sexy in that image. It's kind of there's heat and nature, but this kind of groundedness from the green colors. It's he uses the colors in these very specific ways. I think he also said he uses mathematical formulas to pick specific levels of contrast as well. And I wonder if that's inspired at all by Argento, because there's a couple moments in Suspiria where the colors shift dramatically to reflect the changing, the swing of a scene. There's suddenly everything is just bathed in really intense, surreal colors like red and blue. There's a really cool scene where they're in her room, and it's got kind of not exactly naturalistic. It's a little moody. It's a little stylized, but kind of dark. And then they turn out the lights, and suddenly everything's green. And there's a blue light shining from the corner. It's super weird. There is no logical in-universe explanation for why it's lit like this. It just is for stylistic. It's a stylistic thing. The JoJo anime does the same thing, where they pick a set color palette for most of the show, but then in every episode during these moments of intense emotion, the color palette will shift and swing to reflect what's going on. I wonder if that was, I mean, obviously they're doing it to kind of adapt his approach to coloring, because just making everything have a consistent color palette is not quite capturing the whole JoJo vibe. But I wonder if Araki's influence itself comes from Argento. I never made that connection. I find a way to talk about JoJo no matter what. Wouldn't you believe it? I had a little bit of trouble differentiating between some of the characters in Suspiria, because everyone is a brunette white woman. And after a while, besides the main character, a lot of them kind of blur together for me. The main actress, whose name I can't remember, is she's great though. She always looks concerned. She always has this look of oh, I don't know. she just always looks worried. It reminds me of my little brother, infamously growing up. I think this has changed since, but when he was a kid, he had like resting worried face. Anytime there was a candid picture of him, he just had this kind of concerned expression going on. And we would always make fun of him for it. I don't think he's really like that anymore. But when he was a kid, he certainly was. She kind of reminded me of that. Yes, but Suspiria, its use of these really surreal visuals gives it a very distinctive sense of atmosphere. There are a lot of movies that feel otherworldly for their own reasons, but Suspiria really puts it on screen in a way that very few do. It is just an incredibly compelling film to watch, on top of the usual good Argento shit, such as he's really good at drawing you into a scene, using silence and contrast in sound. Man, there's this amazing scene where all the students are forced to spend the night in the gymnasium because of an incident that happens. And at this point already, we've had a scene where the main girl and her friend they're in her room and they're listening to the sound of one of the staff members walking up and down the hall. This is at night. She's walking up and down the halls, and they're kind of whispering to each other, and they're talking about how, I think she asks, like, where do they live? Or where do the teachers sleep here? And her friend is like, no, they all live in town. And she's like, well, that doesn't make much sense, because whenever I hear their footsteps, they're never walking towards the entrance of the school, or I suppose the exit. They're never walking towards the exit. So I don't think they ever actually leave the school. And this starts a kind of strange observation about where do the teachers go at night, if not home. And then there's this thing about the headmistress of the school, who is never shown. No one's ever seen her. She never appears. She never appears to the student body, but her friend is like, oh yeah, oh wait, no, hang on, they reveal that in this scene. I guess I'll spoil this scene, but it's so cool. You should go watch the movie. You can find it on YouTube. It's free. There's this scene where they all have to sleep in the gymnasium. They turn out the lights, and suddenly everything's just red, you know? And there's this big tarp that separates the two sides of the gymnasium. And there's this silhouette of someone on the other side that's like right behind the two main girls. And there's this weird, like, whinnying sound, like a weird snore. It has this high-pitched nasal tone to it. And her friend is like, that's the headmistress. She's never been seen, but she stayed in a room. I figured out that she stayed in a room next to mine because I heard the exact same snoring. And there's just like, you don't know why, and nothing happens in this scene. There is no big climax or explosion. They're just like, something is weird. Something's off about this. Something's wrong here. But you cannot figure out what. It's very unnerving. It's one of the best scenes in the movie. And it's so quiet, and it just lingers. It just lingers on the shot of this silhouette right behind the tarp. Who is she? What does she look like? What's the deal? What's going on? Now, of course, all of these questions and more are answered by the end. But Suspiria is a great movie. Great movie. Some really incredibly memorable visuals and moments. Great scenes of tension and suspense when the movie pops off, it really pops off. It's very cathartic. And then finally, Deep Red, which is not a horror movie. Well, in some sense, you could call it that, but it's more of a whodunit thriller. It's about a jazz pianist who lives in Rome, where Argento, I think, spent a lot of his life as well. And so technically the movie opens with this psychic. She's this Hungarian psychic who's doing a performance, I guess you'd call it, in an auditorium. And she states that she can't see into the future. She can only see into people's minds, which can include their memories as well. And she detects that someone in the audience is a murderer. Later that night, she is killed in her apartment. Our jazz pianist, who has come to Rome to play at a conservatory, or to teach at a conservatory, is the only witness to the murder. He happens to live in the apartment below hers, and he's on the street late at night talking to one of his band members when the guy kind of like drunkenly walks off, and then the pianist looks back at his apartment as he's about to walk up and sees her being murdered in the window. So he runs up, finds the body, calls the police, and then this detective, this local reporter, has the bright idea to photograph him and say, "This is the only witness to the murder." So now, of course, he has a huge target on his back because he's the only witness, and the murderer is now going to come after him. Therefore, he and the reporter both get involved in solving the case. And they have a bit of an odd couple thing. They have kind of a clash, a little battle of the sexes type of thing. He's a little old-fashioned. Should a woman really be having a job? But she's like a 1970s working woman. She's making her way up in the world. And, she's going to get the scoop. And they end up forming, they have a lot of friction between them, friction with each other, but they form this kind of odd friendship and mutual understanding of the way that each of them is, and eventually come to really appreciate and care about each other, which is fun to watch. So he gets really into investigating this crime and these murders. There are additional murders. Basically, it kind of accelerates because they get a lead. He gets a clue pertaining to the case through his own investigation, and he wants to go question someone. She's already dead. And it's like, okay, so the killer not only has killed once, but they're also actively trying to take out anyone who might know anything about their identity. This is a classic black glove killer film, which was a trope in Italian slasher films, where you would never see the killer in full view. You would just see their hand, doing something, and they would always be wearing a black glove. There are some excellent scenes of tension. That scene where this one, she's like an author who wrote this book that contains a sort of urban legend that sounds very similar to the murders. When she gets killed, she lives in this farmhouse that's a little out of the way outside of the city. And you just get a shot of her walking past her closet. So she I think she says goodbye to her maid. She sees the maid off, like Bernie. And when she walks back into the house, there's a doll hanging, it's been hanged from a rope from the ceiling. And it's still swinging. And when she walks in and sees that, it is such a good shot. It is such a good tone switcher from the establishing of the location to shit's really dangerous. This is bad. And then oh my God, there's like one, she walks past her slightly open closet and you get a shot of like just the eyes in the closet. A completely like unnatural shot. Of course, obviously if there was enough light to show someone's eyes, you'd probably see more of their face, but you just see the eyes. And it's like, oh, it's so creepy. It's so spooky. And the tension leading up to the murder scene is just phenomenal. It's just fantastic. A lot of the deaths in this film hit really hard because they aren't violent in a traditional way. They aren't traditional movie deaths. Argento one time he talked about this movie, and part of his intent with the death scenes was that he didn't want to have sort of, again, conventional slasher deaths, like being hacked to death with a knife or something like that, or getting shot. Because in truth, most people don't know what it's like to get shot or stabbed. Maybe you've cut yourself. You know, I might have been a dumbass in the past and cut myself on like a knife, cut my finger on a knife, or you've gotten a paper cut or something like that. But getting stabbed is a very specific kind of experience. Most people can't relate to that. So all of the deaths in the movie are basically him taking common everyday minor injuries and jacking them up to the extreme. You know, like, again, like maybe getting a little paper cut on your finger, stubbing your toe, getting a little burn on your hand while you're cooking, that kind of a thing. All of these are taken and ratcheted up to an extreme level to turn them into like full-on kills. That is just like, there's a viscerality to the kills in Deep Red that you rarely see in a lot of slasher movies, where you just go, and there's something very relatable about the way that these people are being killed that makes you feel really bad. The movie's a bit long. It's like 2 hours. It also suffers from having two different cuts. I would say, okay, so there's the 2-hour cut, which is the original cut. And there is the American cut, which I believe is 20 minutes shorter. From what I read about what the American cut takes out, and I can understand why they did it. I can honestly see arguments either way. I would say probably go with the Italian cut because it is more complete. And then if you're interested in rewatching the film, maybe try checking out the American one to see if you like the pacing more. The Italian cut retains, well, it's the full story. The main thing you lose with the American version is there's like one little subplot that gets cut, and then there is also the comedy scenes, which might sound strange, but there is actually quite a bit of comedy in Deep Red. In fact, I think it's one of the film's more charming qualities is that it is genuinely kind of a very funny movie at many points, mostly revolving around the relationship between the main character and the reporter. Who, I should mention, the reporter is played by Dario Argento's wife at the time. So he is taking many opportunities to like show her off, I suppose. Like, she's very pretty, and there's lots of moments where she gets to be like cute and funny and charismatic and lovable, and she kind of, she does some stupid things in the film, but she's just like, I just can't bring myself to hate her. She's just too fucking cute. Dario Argento is like, look at how fucking epic my wife is in this film. And they have a lot of scenes where they're going back and forth, and there's some funny jokes. There's like actually there's literally slapstick. She has like this beat up piece of shit Italian car that she drives the whole film that has a ton of like you would not believe every single scene there's something new going wrong with this car. It's a genuinely quite funny movie at times, and I think that really helps serve to offset the mystery and the suspense throughout the thriller aspects, which some people might find takes them out of the film. I think that I could definitely see someone saying that, but personally, I quite liked it. There is, I will say, there's a reveal at the end of the movie about the killer that did not make sense to me. And I was like, what? This doesn't, I don't really, is this really how the movie's gonna end? And then I saw how much time was left. And then there's a real reveal, and the real twist was really good. The eventual, it is long. At times, I could see it, some people might find it a little bit boring. It gets a little bit procedural at points. But the payoff to me is worth it. And I really liked the way that everything built on each other. So yeah, Deep Red, one of his most highly rated films. Yeah, Dario Argento, actually fucking sick director. The movies live up to the hype. They are really good horror movies and suspenseful thrillers. He's a great horror director. Writes really interesting plots. He's great. He's great. And then speaking of, Kat, my father, and I also went to a little Hitchcock festival where they were playing, well, a bunch of movies. We saw Dial M for Murder and Rope. Neither of which I had seen. Kat hadn't seen them either. My dad had seen both. He's a big classic movie buff. So he's watching all the... There's actually a bunch of Hitchcock that he hasn't watched that he's now going through because of this festival. I've only seen Psycho and the Birds, which, are two of his probably strongest works from what I understand. Those are good-ass movies. But I'd never seen Dial M for Murder or Rope. I'd heard, Rope is legendary. It's the one shot thing, which it's not, but we'll get to that. Dial M for Murder is fantastic. It's a really, really good movie. It feels very play-like. I believe it was adapted from a play? Ooh, I don't remember. Rope might have been as well. But Dial M for Murder is this very small, very contained movie. Almost the entire thing takes place in one house. One apartment, in fact. And actually, much like Rope, funny enough. Basically, here's the hook for Dial M for Murder. A husband finds out that his wife has been cheating on him with an American novelist, a mystery novelist, funny enough, who always writes books about the perfect crime. The husband is plotting to get revenge on the wife and blackmails an old colleague of his into killing her. And he himself has planned out the perfect crime. But it turns out that the perfect crime has a lot of holes in it. It's got a lot more... It's much less perfect than you would expect, given the label. So yeah, things go wrong. The movie kind of plays out in generally three acts, which is like the crime, the cover-up, and the big final push for justice. I won't spoil too much about the way that it goes, but it is, this is funny enough, this is also a movie that has some humor in it, because part of this is it is a comedy of errors. The husband has planned out this murder so meticulously And yet, when you actually get into the nitty-gritty, all of these little things go wrong. Like, even things that don't actually mean anything, that don't have any long-term implications, just little things. Like, he's going to make a call to the house so that the murderer knows. He's going to make a call to the house while he's out so that his wife will go to the phone, and then the murderer's going to sneak up behind her and strangle her. But, like, he's at, like, a dinner party. He goes to the phone, and there's just, like, an old guy just yammering on the phone. And it doesn't, like, fuck up the plan or anything. It's just, like, he has to wait a few more minutes than he expected, and he's kind of antsy. And it's just all these, like, little things that are going wrong. There's a genuinely funny moment where the wife, the murderer's standing behind her with he's gonna, like, strangle her with a stocking. And she's holding the phone, and she's answering it, and her husband is on the other line, but he's not saying anything. She doesn't know it's him. And the murderer he keeps, like, lifting up the stocking to, like, put it around her neck, but she's still holding the phone up, which is gonna make it, like, really awkward to, like, get, like, her arms in the way. So he, like, brings it down, and then she, like, pulls the phone away for a second, and he, like, lifts it back up, and then she's like, what is that? She, like, pulls the phone back up, and then he's like, oh my god, fuck, god damn it. And then finally, like, when she puts the phone down far enough that he can, like, get a grip around her. Yeah, there's, like, a comedy of errors element to it, which is just like, yeah, that's just kind of how it goes. It's not necessarily a comedy, but there are sort of comedic qualities to it because life is just sort of absurd like that sometimes. Look up the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. Most people would consider that a pretty serious thing that happened. That was a fucking clown show. But yeah, Dial M for Murder it's great. There's a lot of really fun. I guess I got in spoilers. You should go watch it. It's probably pretty easy to find. I think a lot of them are public domain, actually. Go watch it. There's this really interesting arc that happens where the murder it fails. The murder fails because, surprise, surprise, things didn't go exactly according to plan. While he's trying to strangle her out, there happens to be a pair of scissors on the table behind her. She grabs the scissors and stabs him in the back. And he's like, oh, fuck. Oh, fuck. I'm actually going to die. She survives the attack, super traumatized. There's a dead guy in her house. She doesn't know what the fuck just happened. The husband comes home. It's now a mess. And there's police there. There's a detective. And then this really interesting thing starts to happen where the detective, like, the husband is super nervous and he's clearly trying to keep it together and come up with a realistic explanations for all of these things that kind of point to this being a setup. And the detective, not even really because of the husband, this was not even his angle to begin with, but the detective starts to suspect that the wife set this whole thing up. And that she was blackmailing the murderer and the murderer came to kill her. And as this is happening, the husband is just like, you can see it on his face where he's like, what? No, I mean, that's impossible. And he plays this very fine game of trying to come to his wife's defense, but with arguments that are just poorly constructed enough that it will still look like he's trying to defend her, but the detective can poke holes into the story. So she gets arrested. And she's going to be hanged. This then leads into the third act of the story, where basically the boyfriend, who of course the whole affair came out in public, so now the boyfriend, it's now known that the husband can now act like he's just learned about the affair. The boyfriend basically comes to him and he's like, we have to figure out a way to get her exonerated. There's no way that she did this. And then it becomes the boyfriend sort of figuring out like whether or not the husband did it, and working with the detective, and people are hiding information from each other, and it's fantastic. It's great. The whole linchpin of the story is it's a great callback to something that happens earlier in the film. It's like there's a huge payoff. I guess that's the running theme here. Big payoffs. Big payoffs. Yeah, the end. I guess it's just because I've been watching so many whodunits recently and like mysteries. But I think that is crucial. How good is the final reveal? How good is the final twist? How do I feel at the end? And by the end, I was in that, oh, that's nice. Yeah, it's very satisfying. That's part of I think the core appeal of the whole genre is that it's like a puzzle and you're trying to figure it out. And it's fun to see characters who are competent figure something out. And especially when the movie outsmarts you a little bit or calls back to something and rewards you for paying attention. So yeah, honestly, just great movie. Just great movie. Holds up tremendously well. Then we watched Rope. So Rope, I've always heard the hype around Rope is that, oh, it's all one shot. That is not true. That is not true. Okay, so what's Rope about? That's the thing okay, I'll talk about that in a second when I get into the actual, what I like about the film. Which is, Rope is still a great movie. It's still a fantastic film. Rope is about two college, are they graduates? They're either graduates or something. They're like college-aged dudes. They kill a classmate of theirs in their shared apartment. They invite him over and they kill him. They strangle him to death with a rope, and they hide him in a big old chest. And the reason they've done this is because the kind of leader guy, there's the one guy who is super into this, and the other guy who he has serious reservations as soon as the deed is done. He has serious regrets about this, and he really he was not prepared for genuinely how he felt killing someone. Little too late. Basically, the guy in charge is convinced of this sort of supremacist ideology that he is intellectually superior to other people, and that for the superiors in society, morals are a construction to control and herd the inferior members of society, and they do not and should not apply to those with superior intellects, which of course he is, because he gets to decide who has the superior and inferior intellects. So for him, murder is not, he doesn't believe that murder is a crime when he does it against, one of these poor rubes. In fact, it is so above a crime, it is a work of art. It's a work of art to commit the perfect crime. Again, the common themes here. So his whole deal is he has this sick, gleeful plot that not only is he going to kill this guy, the very night of, they're going to hide him in this chest and invite his whole family, his girlfriend, and his best friend to a dinner party in the apartment. And what's more, they're going to serve, and their former professor, they're going to serve food off of the chest. Also, their maid is there. So, Rope is one of the best movies for pointing out. It's one of the best actual, practical demonstrations of something that Hitchcock talked about himself. His approach to suspense in films. He called it the bomb under the table. And it's basically that giving the audience, it's the principle that giving the audience more information can create a more intense emotional response over a longer period of time than surprising them. So a bunch of characters, his example is like, there's a bunch of characters under a table in there's a bunch of characters eating dinner at a table in a hypothetical story, and then suddenly a bomb explodes. It was under the table the whole time. And this is very shocking and like, wow. But it's only shocking and impactful for like a moment. However, if the audience knows that there's a bomb under the table when the scene starts, every single moment of that scene is horrifically tense. You're just thinking about the bomb the whole time. It turns the banal, regular old conversation that they're having into incredible tension, because you're now paying it. Every single second that these people spend alive at this table is important because of the threat of imminent death. Rope is essentially this same concept. That is what if you based a whole movie around that? Instead of a bomb under a table, it's a body under the table, actually, because they're serving off of it. Essentially, it's the leader guy just sort of like starting shit and kind of fucking with people. Like, he's intentionally fucking with people because it makes him... He's this like sick, twisted kind of sociopath where he believes that he has the right to just fuck with anyone because he's better than them inherently. So, first of all, the sickening concept of serving a guy's family food off of his like literal grave, unbeknownst to them. The girlfriend and the best friend actually used to date. She broke up with him for understandable reasons, and putting them in a room together creates like a really like, dude, come on, like, why did you, like, you're trying to start shit. Funny enough, they have one of the happier endings in the movie because they basically, again, leader guy kind of tries to get them together. He tries to put them together, and the best friend is like, oh, really? You think she would go for me again? And the girlfriend is like, no, I don't. And they have an actual conversation about this where they talk about why she liked the other guy more than him. And he actually like thinks that she's reasonable. And he's like, actually, you know what? You're right. And I like kind of respect you. And actually what brings them together is, why is leader guy such a fucking asshole weirdo? And him being a super freak in trying to start shit, and them like rebelling against his wishes and his control, his attempt to control the situation, ends up salvaging their relationship, and they end up smoothing things out, which is really funny. Really, you get a greater understanding of why this is all happening when you learn a little bit more about their professor, who is one of the key guests at the party. So their professor is this philosopher, is a professor of philosophy. And it turns out that their whole thing about morals and who morals apply to all come from him. The professor is actually just a complete dumbass. He told them in school that morals only apply to people who are inferior, or that they are a tool for controlling people who are basically too dumb to control themselves. It's like the Nazi distortion of the Nietzschean Übermensch. It's like that exact flawed idea. The whole movie essentially builds towards a scene that is the SpongeBob episode about being a lifeguard. I didn't think that being a lifeguard meant guarding people's lives. He is just shocked and befuddled that anyone actually took his words seriously. And it's like, yeah, dude. Like, he has this dumbass moment where he's like, I said all that, but now that I've seen what that actually produced, I think it's horrifying, and I'm really starting to rethink this whole thing. And it's like, you're a philosophy studier, you're a studier of philosophy, a student of philosophy, and not once did you espouse this belief and bring it to its logical extreme. Like, you never considered, hey, who gets to decide who is superior and inferior? You were just like a fucking dumbass. You fucking reinvented Ayn Rand, and you were like, oh fuck, was that a bad idea? Yeah, it was a bad idea. So he's a dumbass, but it doesn't necessarily detract from the movie. It's just kind of funny. The whole thing about the movie being one take is a lie. There are at least... Okay. So the start of the film has a couple cuts, obviously. It's setting up... You get a couple quick shots. Actually, funny enough, the movie flashes the title card like 6 different times, which might be a joke, genuinely. It feels like a joke. They keep telling you the movie is called Rope. And it might be a joke about how most of the movie is one long cut. It was like, hey, let's get all the cuts out of the way at the beginning. But once you actually get into the apartment, it just kind of goes from there. However, there are at least 2 hard cuts. There's at least 2 of them. Now, again, I've always heard this thing about how impressive it was. But then you watch the film, and first of all, there are those 2 hard cuts. Second of all, people are like, oh, but he hides where the cuts are, so it's not obvious. And then there'll be a moment where the cameraman just fucking digs into someone's back so the screen goes all black and then zooms back out. And you're like, I wonder where the cut is. Like, it's very silly. Obviously, because of the physical limitations of film, they could not actually do an entire movie on one reel. So they make a couple cuts and they attempt to hide it. It is unbelievably obvious, and it's so goofy when the quote-unquote hidden cuts happen. It's really silly. But that is not to detract from the effect that the long shots do, because, to the film's credit, almost all of it is singular, long, unbroken shots that just go and go and flow and flow. There's a passage of time that you can see through this big window they have in one of the main rooms. And you really feel like you've been there for a while. And part of the tension is that one thing that a cut can do is relieve tension. Cuts can relieve tension by showing you what's important and what's not important. Lingering on something and then cutting to something else because maybe you don't have to worry about it for now. The effect of the near constant unbroken panning shots of Rope is basically that you just, like, it all kind of washes over you and you're never quite sure when it's going to pop off. There are several points in the movie where things could go real south for the main characters, and the language of the movie is deliberate. Like I talked about Argento a moment ago, and how he will pick these shots where it messes with your understanding of the like visual language of film. Rope does that in the sense that there's no like big reaction shots. There's no big, you never, because it's almost vague. It's kind of like vague, and you have to almost guess when something important is going to happen. And so you're always paying attention, and you end up really sucked into this whole environment, especially once the party gets going. It's really good. It's a great movie. Really, really fun watch. It's quite short also. Yeah. Surprise, surprise. Rope is good. Hitchcock movies are good. Okay. I'm done talking about movies. Are we okay? Now I have 4 video games to talk about. All right, well, I guess I'll start off with Fallout 76. Now, whenever I mention Fallout 76 to people, they go, "Oh, is that even still around?" Yeah, it's still around. And it's still kicking, it's still going strong. Probably stronger than ever before, honestly. And it's probably also in the best shape it's ever been in before, from what I can tell from just seeing how the game is updated over the years. Fallout 76 got off on a real bad note with people when it came out. First of all, people have a massive Bethesda hate boner, so there's always going to be an inflated level of criticism for their games. Because you guys did Fallout 3, but Fallout 3 wasn't even good. But you did Skyrim, but Skyrim wasn't even good. But you did Oblivion, but Oblivion wasn't even good. And you making Starfield. I hate it. I fucking hate listening to RPG players' discussions. I genuinely think that RPGs have the worst RPG fans. Maybe gacha fans are worse and they have a worse average. But I think RPG, especially classic, CRPGs, have a worse community at the pits. I fucking try to look up something. I try to look up how the goddamn spell system works in Wizardry 8. And I go to a thread on, RPG Codex. And, 2 replies in, there's a guy with a fucking Nazi SS lightning bolts in his profile picture. And I'm like, okay, all right. Anyway, what was I talking about? So first of all, people were already negatively primed against any Bethesda game that comes out. Second of all, 76 also genuinely had a lot of problems at launch. And a lot of it, there was no human NPCs, because they were oh, the players are going to be like the NPCs. They're going to take on the role of NPCs. It's going to be those other survival games like Ark or something, which is an understandable and kind of cool concept. It just did not work in the game. You got to have something. You got to have an actual something. There's tons of human NPCs now. There is no shortage of them. That has been fixed. One of the first things you do when you open the vault, the first thing you see is the ghoul from the TV show. And he's like, I'm the ghoul from Amazon's Fallout TV show. You can come to my area and get a side quest. Brand integration. Okay, cool, whatever. Brand synergy. Why did I decide to try out 76? Well, for one, now that the hate fires have died out quite a bit, and no one's really shitting on the game anymore, and haven't for many years. I think most people just moved on. I was like, hey, the game's still going. And occasionally I see I think Dave Oshry from New Blood talk about how he loves Fallout 76. And I just thought, you know what? It goes on sale all the time for $7. $7. That's all the money I have to spend on you. And I caught it on a sale and just decided to download and play it. And I now understand, because I've also dipped my toe into Elder Scrolls Online. I don't think I ever even talked about it on the podcast, but I have played ESO as well, a little bit of it. And I now understand there is now an archetype in my mind, despite there only being 2 games, what a Bethesda MMO is. A Bethesda MMO is, I would say, the definition of all of their MMOs, and if they do another one, I am absolutely certain it will be the same. A Bethesda MMO is absolutely serviceable for what it says on the tin. Fallout 76 is, I would say, the core appeal is that it is a multiplayer survival MMO with real survival and base building mechanics and fucking hunger bars and stuff and crafting, set in the Fallout world. And if that sounds at all interesting to you, it will get the job done. Bethesda MMOs get the job done. Same thing for ESO. If you want to play a multiplayer MMO in the world of the Elder Scrolls, which I think that game takes place in like a time period none of the other games do. So it has its own unique appeal. If you want to spend more time in that world, it'll get it done for you. Is the combat great? No. Not by any means. Is the story good? Probably some of it. But it is, if you want to live in that world, it will do the trick. This is not necessarily an indictment of 76 or even ESO. It's just, it will give you what you're looking for. And to be fair, for the longest time, there's been a real dearth of survival MMOs that are, that don't die instantly. The closest thing I can think of that's been recent is that Dune Awakening MMO, which I have never seen anyone talk about ever. I have one friend on Steam who boots it up all the time. I have never seen anyone on the internet talk about this game after it was released. 76 has it does scratch the itch. If you want a game where you are going to go around and scavenge and grow stuff and craft items and make food, manage various survival mechanic bars and stuff like that. There's stamina. The AP system of the other Fallout games has been extended into also including things like running and jumping consume some of your stamina. A complex set of buffs and debuffs that you might have. The special system and character leveling are a little confusing to me. I kind of understand them. The interface is very strange. You have all the special stats, but instead of just like when you level up, you click a button to put a point in that stat, there's this whole card system, which are like the perks. The perks and the special are kind of rolled into one interface, and there are different perks associated with different special stats. And you can put a point into the special by it's very weird. You put a point into it by clicking on it, and then but it's not clear where you gotta click. But you will spend the point and level it up, and it will increase the amount of cards that you can assign there. And when you level up, you get you open a pack of perk cards. I believe the game does, to be fair, in terms of perks. So I'm pretty sure, I don't know how respecking special works exactly. I'm sure you can, but the perks are very easy to respec. You can do it basically at any time. So you don't have to super hard commit to anything. You can just equip the stuff that you have on hand, even if it's not the most amazing endgame stuff or whatever. It's a fine system. VATS is very strange. I was curious about how they handled VATS in this game, because obviously in a live server online world, you can't have all of time freeze when every player goes into VATS. That would be ridiculous. So what they do is it causes kind of a slow-mo effect that I don't know how that really looks to other players. But then you will basically, it's basically auto aim. It's auto aim on enemies. And it's a little weird. It's a little strange in the way that it controls, because also your ability to aim gets super slowed down, and it gets kind of sluggish and weird, and also your view doesn't snap to the thing that you're aiming at. It's kind of odd. It feels like things can jump, like run around your periphery very easily. Still uses AP though. 76. It plays a so actually this might sound a little crazy. In a lot of ways, it plays like Fallout 4, but without the fully voiced dialogue that bogs that game's entire writing down. So actually, probably better in that regard. There is the same base building elements. You can build not exactly everywhere, but in a lot of places. I want to give a shout out to the environmental design. The game takes place in Appalachia, which is a very kind of how would I say, overlooked part of the US compared to some of the other settings that the game has had, like the Southwest or the Boston area. Appalachia is usually considered it's often referred to as like a flyover, or like no one really wants to spend a lot of time in there. It's infamous for being kind of poor and rural, and it also has tons of gorgeous, and that's not entirely fair to those people, to the people who do live there. That's just kind of like the stereotype, and one of the reasons that you rarely see it represented in any media. It's a very underrepresented part of the country. But what's neat about it being in 76 is that they really capture the gorgeous landscapes and forests of the region. There were several moments during this game's day and night cycle where during the sunset I was just in a forest and the trees had these wonderful autumn colors, and I just looked around and thought, this game has a really nice art style. It really nicely captures the natural world. It's very pretty at several points. Unfortunately, it suffers from really bad optimization. So, if I ever have performance issues in a game, it is certainly not my computer's fault. I have a very powerful rig. I have some real strong specs on my computer. I have invested in this machine to make it a powerful editing and gaming machine. And I can run most things on the highest settings. I guess I don't run things at 4K because I only have a 1080p monitor. But, I mean, I think that should be good enough, right? 76 consistently struggles to hit a consistent 60 frames per second on my computer. It often jostles. Sometimes it's 60. It often goes. It is almost always when I'm outside, dropping to as low as 40, and the inconsistency is very noticeable. It's very noticeable. It's because it's also it's not just that it's low, it's inconsistent. And I know that this is an optimization issue because one, my computer is very powerful, and two, when I go inside of a smaller instanced area, instantly fixed. It instantly, like, buttery smooth frame rate. No issues. So it's clearly not like a refresh rate problem in my graphics settings or something like that. It's definitely something with the game. Oh, do you remember when I played I Divine Cybermancy and I had all of those weird frame rate issues? Yeah. So, no, sorry, not I. Rogue Warrior. All those problems with Rogue Warrior. Someone left a comment that was like, "Of course you have bad FPS. The game is on you have the game set to low FPS mode. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? So I looked back at the moment in the video where I go over the settings, and I completely missed that Rogue Warrior by default starts at like so first of all, the resolution and the refresh rate are the same setting, which is annoying. Second of all, the default is like 20 hertz. What? Or like 25 or something? What the fuck? This game came out in 2011? 2009, 2011. You couldn't get it to... What? Why is the default so low? Like, yeah, that probably did fuck with my monitor, which is like 144 hertz. I'm still not fucking taking the blame for that. That's insane. That's ridiculous. Anyway, Fallout 76 suffers from some real performance issues. But there are, there's a lot of positive qualities that offset that. The questing is fine. From what I experienced, there's a decent variety of activities to do, going places, talking to people, killing enemies. Sometimes, very often, you have to actually put your thinking cap on a little bit and actually consider where you're going to go and why. There's like a fun little side quest that you can do early on in the game where you find this guy who got like trapped in a freezer and he left an audio log with the instructions on how to get to his life savings. And it's actually like a little puzzle you got to piece together from his instructions and follow his instructions. And it's not exactly like a super obvious path. You got to pay attention to your surroundings, and it's not marked on a mini map or anything, and stuff like that's cool. The game also has a lot of really nice contextual details. I think that some of these are a remnant of the game originally launching with no human NPCs, but there are audio logs that you can find all over the map that have recordings of early survivors of the bombs dropping, talking about their lives and stuff. And some of them are like pretty compelling little short stories in the Fallout universe, basically, with the stories of survival and community, people finding purpose, people losing purpose. You can access old terminals sometimes. And there are characters, there are little bits of characterization for people that you will never meet who are long dead, but you can see, how much they loved fucking like ribeye steaks from their computer. And there's like all of these logs you can find about their meal plan, and it's all fucking ribeye steaks. And there's like real effort put into the details of the world to make it feel lived in, which is pretty important for a Fallout game. Now, granted, 76 years after the bombs drop, you know what? I'll take it with a grain of salt that the radiation wouldn't be so bad that you couldn't walk outside and leave the vault and all that. There's probably... Well, there are places that they do tell you are still just hopelessly irradiated. So those places got it really badly. There is a... The opening of the game is generally... It's pretty serviceable in introducing you to the core concept. Basically, you are a member of Vault 76, such the title, which has been chosen. It's not one of the weird fucking science experiments from the other games. It is actually been chosen to be one of the early... it's the best of the best. I guess it's a bit of a eugenics project, if anything. The best of the best, and they're going to get all these resources, and they're going to be the first ones out of the vaults to go resettle the wasteland of the new American frontier. And so you wake up, I think you like overslept. You're the last person out of the vault, and they're really building up the importance of what you're about to do and getting you hyped to go out and interact with the with the world and open up building menus and stuff like that. And I'm walking through, and the game is really trying to set up through music and dialogue from the robots how important this is about to be. And I'm about to step out of the vault. The music is swelling, and then I get a notification in the top right. Murder Baiter 3000 has launched a nuke. Take cover. And I take a step back and I'm like, well, first of all, I imagine my character is thinking, fucking really? Already? We just got out. But I'm like, oh, do I have to worry about that? So this is like a sort of end game mechanic where you get to occasionally launch nukes on the map. And for like the first few hours that I was playing, these two players were just throwing nukes back and forth at each other, trying to kill each other, because it was always in like the same two locations. It was very silly. Yeah, 76 overall. Like, I don't have too much to say about it. It is generally solid. Has performance issues, but it is a multiplayer Fallout game with crafting and base building and survival mechanics. And if that sounds intriguing to you, the game will provide that. Also, I should say, I should give them props. You buy the game and you get the game. There is no limited time trial. There's nothing like that. You just buy the game, which, again, it goes on sale fairly often for pretty cheap. And then you just get the game. There are, to my understanding, so there is an in-game cash shop. And there is a subscription service that gets you early access to content. But all of that stuff is cosmetic, yada yada. Okay, they gotta pay for the servers and development somehow. Fine. I can at least appreciate that you buy the game and you get the game. And all the other stuff is just extras. I believe there is expansion content, and that is sold separately. I'm fine with that. Okay, sure. I throw up my hands. Fallout 76, it'll do what you want it to do. All right. And now Song of Saya. This is a bit of a curveball from what I usually talk about. So I have a little bit of experience with visual novels. I talked about one on the last video with Dead of the Brain. Visual novels are a historically, well, very often they're perceived. The historical perception of visual novels is that they are an intimidating genre to get into. And that is kind of true. Mainly because all of the best, most highly lauded games, if you can call them that, in the genre are really fucking long. Fate is really fucking long. Umineko is really fucking long. And they are wordy and not for everyone. Visual novel authors are infamously flowery and wordy in their prose. And sometimes, to be honest, I think that when a lot of people open up their laptop or turn on their computer, they don't exactly want to read a book on it. They like audio. There's gotta be audio, like audiobook / audio drama versions of visual novels. I feel like those could really take off. Which, granted, would just be, a lot of them have voice acting, but like a full, let's say an English voice acted version with like sound effects and stuff so that you kind of know what's going on. That could be good. Like music, that could be cool. Anyway, notoriously kind of intimidating thing to get into because of just the sheer time investment that is asked of you, and the fact that I think a lot of people just don't want to read a book on their computer. And for these reasons, Song of Saya is often recommended as kind of a starter VN because it's very short. I played the whole thing in about 4-ish hours, and I got every ending. It's got 3 endings, I believe. I got all of them in less than 4 hours. This is also kind of a funny situation because Song of Saya is also horrifically weird and off-putting and intentionally very disturbing and shocking and wants to gross you out constantly. Even the premise is disgusting. I will get into it. So Song of Saya, I think one of its best aspects is honestly its premise. It is a very fascinating idea for at least a hook. It's a very intriguing mystery. Basically, the main character is this guy named Fuminori, I think. He's Fuminori Sakasaki. He has a very long name. All of his friends have 1-syllable names. They're like Yo and Ko and Koji. No, it's like Yo and Umi and Koji. But he's Fuminori Sakasaki. Anyway, he is in a horrible car accident that kills both of his parents instantly. He's like college-aged. He's in college. His parents both die. He, in order to save his life, the hospital has to perform an experimental brain surgery on him. And when he wakes up from his coma, the entire world is made of gore. The entire world. The floor, the bed, the blanket, the people, everything is made of meat. Viscera, muscle, intestines, veins, fucking weird pipes, you know, sacks of pus and gross shit. Just gore. The whole world is made of gore. Every person looks like the Arby's meat mountain. They are just big, fleshy blobs with maybe an eyeball sticking out. They speak in these horribly distorted voices. And as you learn, it's not just a visual thing. All of his senses are affected by this sensory disorder. It smells. It smells bad. Everything feels wet and slimy and soft. Food tastes disgusting. It is just this horrific condition. Except for one person. There is absolutely one person in this world who seems to be unaffected by his condition. A little girl named Saya, who comes to live with him because she was the daughter of the surgeon who performed the operation on him. And this guy has gone missing. His name is Ogai, I think, or Ogay. Oh, Ogay. And so Fuminori wants to find out about this guy. Saya obviously wants to find her dad. Thus, the plot. So I'll be spoiling the game because fucking whatever. I would recommend it. I think that it's pretty good. I think it's a little overhyped. I can't believe this is the podcast where I say Ice Age is a little underrated and Song of Saya is a little overrated. I'm a true centrist. So, Song of Saya is written by Gen Oribuchi, who's probably best known for the Madoka Magica series. And he's kind of known for being like twisted and disturbing and stuff. And that is both some of the strongest points and some of the weakest points of the story, in my opinion. Now, when I call it overrated, I mean it in a couple ways. So, first of all, I think that the disgusting factor of the game just didn't work on me as much. I was able to like, I'm gonna be so tough now. I'm gonna be so cool. This is such a cool guy. In the middle of playing this, I got up because I was really hungry and I made a ham sandwich and I sat down and ate it while I was playing the game. And I was not deterred. And I lose my appetite. Honestly, I can lose my appetite in a second if I see the wrong thing. And the gore in this game and the meat thing did not bother me really in the slightest. I mean, there's a couple of visuals that are like, but the fact that it's, I don't know, it's very vague. I think that's what it does. That's the reason it doesn't affect me very much. The art is always like, yeah, everything's made of meat, but it's never anything very specific. Like, there's a shot, I think, in Phenomena where someone gets stabbed in, like, they get this open chest wound, and they get stabbed in their still beating heart. And that was more distressing to me. That was grosser to me than anything that happened in Song of Saya. For the most part, it was just like the 2D visuals did not. They kind of helped to obscure the fact that they made it feel a little as real because it was like a drawing / I think some of them are CG as well. It's not terribly convincing or lifelike, and aesthetically, I have this thing, like, I kind of developed this coping mechanism when I was in high school, and sometimes you're in biology and you just gotta see some gross shit about the human body. And I was like, it's just meat. It's just meat. It's fine. Like, it has to be a little more particular or a little more specific and pointed to really make me uncomfortable. But when you just show me like slabs of fucking, it looks like liverwurst. Like, I don't know, man. It's just meat. Yeah, the idea. So here's the thing: the idea. What really got me, the visuals, didn't really get me, but I got uncomfortable from the descriptions of his other senses. Like, for instance, the first scene of the game is Fuminori sitting in his cafeteria with his friends, who he perceives as all being giant meat monsters, and he kind of like. He fucking hates being around them. He's basically on a downward spiral of sanity because of this condition. And he gets up because he's got to go to a doctor's appointment, and he just kind of wants to get out of the situation and not look at them anymore. And one of his friends gets up because, you know, he's been acting really weird recently, and his friend Koji says something to him. And from Fuminori's perspective, it's like some fucking like disgusting pus squirts out of this monster and almost hits his face, and he holds his hand up and he's like to shield his face from getting this gross fluid on him. And like, oh, that's gross. The points where he describes like the smell of something or the sensation of his bed, like that he has to lie in this fucking meat bed. Like, oh, that kind of got under my skin a little bit. And then, well, interestingly, you then see this exact same scene from the perspective of his friends where everything is normal. And from their perspective, he's just acting super weird. Like, Koji gets up to say something to him, and Fuminori just like, ugh, he just throws his hands up. And it's like, dude, are you okay? That stuff was interesting. And the difference in the way that both people perceive the world is a thing that recurs over the story, and it's where some of the most intrigue really arises. So first of all, yeah, like the gross stuff really did not have much of an effect on me. The second thing is, I just don't think it's like that deep. It's a pretty good psychological horror, but I think a lot of people treat something being a psychological horror as meaning that it's particularly deep, or has something to say, which it doesn't. It just means that you like wrote a story about someone going crazy. You obviously can say quite a bit with a psychological horror, but you can say a lot with a slasher movie. The particular subgenre or the style of horror really has no bearing on how deep the story is. And there's tons of stupid psychological horrors. One of my favorite movies is Wicked World. That movie's, I don't even know what to fucking call that. Maybe that's a bad example. That's also kind of a slasher movie. Barry J. Gillis was trying to say something about society, goddammit. I'm sick of this wicked world. Anyway, Song of Saya is not terribly deep, and I think that the way that people talk about it kind of blows it up to a little more than it really is, and makes the psychology seem a little deeper than it really is. If you watch a really good psychological thriller or read one, Song of Saya is pretty good. In that it's engrossing and I get what's going on, and it resonates, at least emotionally. Basically, this is... Fuminori's arc is basically becoming a crazy, misanthropic killer guy who hates humanity. There's a real... I think the best scene in the game is pretty early on when their friend, I think her name is Umi, she goes back to Fuminori's house to confront him because he was kind of an asshole, and she's going to give him a piece of her mind. So she goes to his house. He happens to be out, but Saya is home. And this whole time leading up to this, you've only ever known Saya as like a little girl in his horrible meat hellscape world. And there's an amazing scene, a genuinely great scene of Umi going into his house and being like, why is there all this fucking slime on the floor? And you're like, oh, no way. And you could maybe like, I was taking bets, I was curious about what Saya's actual deal was, but as soon as you start really finding out, it's like, oh shit, okay. And there's a really good horror sequence where she's exploring the house and she finds she flicks on the lights in the living room, and Fuminori has so to him, he's had to paint the walls of his house in colors that kind of look greenish to him because it makes it easier for him to like desensitize himself to the gore. But when she sees it, it's just a mess of literally like completely schizophrenic colors, like madness. It is literally distressing for her to look at this room. And then guess what? Something drops on her. A big fucking blob monster. That's right, Saya's a big meat monster. And that's fun. That was a really fun scene and a fun reveal. The general arc is that Fuminori kind of realizes that Saya eats people. And he's like, well, all right, this is our life now. Because he's just going crazy, man. He's going crazy from his condition. And he becomes more and more of a psychopathic serial killer over the course of the story. And he doesn't have a problem doing whatever he wants and killing his friends and stuff like that. Because he's dark and twisted. He has this evil, fucked up version of the Hamburger Helper. Just a peek into his twisted psyche. And it's not a terrible character arc. I get it. But where it does lose me a little bit is in, I would say, the gratuity. Now, I want to be very clear, because some people hear me criticize certain elements and they think that I'm pro-censorship because they're stupid and they don't know how to listen to the words that I'm saying. I have no problem with you depicting whatever the fuck you want in your fictional world with fictional characters. I guess it changes a little bit if you're using like real child actors or something like that. But that doesn't happen too often. For the most part, I have no problem if you want to write a visual novel that gets freaky and fucked up and weird. I will accept it for like it's a thing. I don't have to like it. I don't have to like it or approve of it personally. But I do not have any opposition inherently to doing whatever the hell you want. I mentioned Harvester early. No, I didn't. I mentioned Harvester in the commentary track for the last video I recorded today. I'm getting my wires crossed. I love Harvester as a game. Really cool game. Tons of fucked up shit in it. Disturbing imagery. Some of it, actually a lot of it involving kids. Which will be very relevant in a moment. Love that game. Love that game. It's all about execution. And I think that I judge that stuff pretty fairly. Like, I don't go in wanting to dislike something. I'm not some, like, Twitter pearl clutcher or something like that. I hate saying Twitter pearl clutcher. It makes me sound like a fucking like a right-winger. But yeah, that kind of thing. So I want everyone to know, let's all be adults about this, and that I am criticizing the specific way that subject matter is handled in Song of Saya, and not its right to exist. Like, you, I guess, have the right to exist, but I might not like you. I don't want you to die. Okay, so what do I actually want to say? Okay. The game sometimes gets too edgy for its own good. There is a very clear, it's like, okay, there's a strong lolicon angle to Song of Saya that is there for the whole game, and it's pretty upfront about it. Saya is a little girl. She is meant to be a little girl. She's not just like a petite adult woman. She is meant to look like a little girl. There are thematic reasons for that. And at the same time, Fuminori is like, fuck it. I'll fuck that. There is literally like one of the when you get the scene of his first day, he comes home and has sex with Saya. And it's like, he's fucking the meat monster. But here's the catch. He thinks it's a little girl. Just parlay. I like don't inherently have a problem with the character being a pedophile, because it is meant to represent basically the defilement of good in his world. Everything is fucked up. And Saya is basically the only good, pure, innocent thing in his eyes. She is the only she is literally like this picture of innocence. She's like a child, literally. And when they have as their sexual relationship progresses, it's like he is not only living in a corrupted world of the Arby's meat locker, but also the one pure thing in his world he is corrupting by dicking it down. So, okay, fine. I get it. I'm not opposed to it. Also, she's not even a real little girl. She's a fucking weird blob monster. And he's kind of aware of this by the end, and he still gets down with it. He might like it more. Where the game loses me is in these moments where it really pushes it. There is this moment. Okay. There's a moment in the game where it starts layering on so many disturbing things that it kind of just feels like an Aristocrats joke. If you don't know, an Aristocrats joke is this kind of classic joke structure. It's a bit of an in-joke among blue comedians, shocking, vulgar comedians. The setup, it's always the same setup, and then you kind of get to go wherever you want with it. The setup is that there's a performing arts, there's a performing family that is auditioning for an agent, and the agent is like, well, show me what you got. What's your act about? And then basically you detail the act, and it's up to whoever's telling the joke, but it's generally the most disgusting, depraved, vulgar, shocking, offensive things you can imagine. There's incest, murder, rape, bestiality, bodily functions of all sorts, just gross, nasty, icky shit. And it just builds and builds and builds and builds until the very end, when they're done, and the agent asks, well, I've never seen anything quite like it. What do you call yourselves? And the remaining, the surviving members of the family, because, like half of them, they're all like covered in shit and blood, and they've lost like limbs or eyeballs, and half of them are dead from anal rape. And they turn around and they go, we're the aristocrats. And that's the joke. That's the punchline. It's kind of like an anti-punchline. It builds and builds and builds, and then it has like a stupid ending. And that's the the point is just how absolutely creative can you get in pushing the boundaries of all good sense, of all good taste. It is an exercise in bad taste. That's the whole point. And it's not meant to be taken seriously. It's an aristocrats joke. You can look up like a fucking 10-minute video of Bob Saget telling one and he's a very vulgar comedian. And like at multiple points, he just like cracks and he's like, what the fuck am I saying? Like, what am I talking about? And there's like a scene from Song of Saya where she basically, she figures out that she can give the meat world condition to other people as well. And so she sneaks into the neighbor's home, he's like this middle-aged painter. He works from home. His wife goes out to work. He has like a young daughter. And while he's home alone, Saya basically pounces on him, puts him into meat vision world, and he just instantly loses his whole goddamn mind. He's just instantly insane from it, driven completely mad. His wife and child come home, and he grabs like a shard of wood like from one of his easels. It like broke off. He grabs like a stake, and he fucking stabs his wife to death. And she's like, honey, no. And he's like, fucking die. And then his daughter's like, Daddy, what are you doing? And then he's like, and then he stabs his daughter to death. It's like that scene from fucking Spike Lee Old Boy where the guy's like, Daddy, bang. He just fucking stabbed his daughter to death. And then he runs outside and he's like, I'm so fucking crazy. And then Saya's there, and she also looks like a little girl to him. And he's like, he turns into like anime rapist. And he's like, little girl. And it's like the voice acting is just super over the top and ridiculous. And he rips her dress open, and he like chases her into her house. And then he starts raping the little girl. And then Fuminori comes in, and he sees it, and he grabs a meat cleaver, and he starts fucking hacking the guy to death, and he kills him, and he chops his head off. And then they turn around, and they're like, we're the aristocrats. And it's like, it's so ridiculous. Urabuchi is trying so hard to disturb me that it just completely collapses. It just ceases to have any impact whatsoever. It's just like, I'm just like, what's going to happen next? Like, I can't take any of it seriously. at all, because I all I can think of is the author being like, oh boy, I hope this next part really is really twisted, I hope it really gets them, and I'm totally taken out of the story. It just doesn't work on me. It's probably, and like when the game really leans into that stuff, I think it's kind of lame, and it loses a lot of power in some of the creepier segments, because there's quite a bit of creepy writing in this, and good suspense. I like the concept, and you know what? This is a game with a crazy premise where the explanation actually does not deflate the intrigue. The more that I learned about what was really going on and the secrets of what Saya actually is and what this condition is, I actually got more invested in it. It also helps that as Fuminori spirals into madness, the game basically shifts into a second main character perspective, like halfway through, to his friend Koji. And Koji, just being a relatively normal person, allows you to still kind of like invest yourself into the conflict. If it was, and I think that's one of the game's saving graces, if it was just Fuminori being a fucking crazy pedophile murderer, I think it would get pretty old. But having someone to oppose him and actually getting to spend a lot of time with that character strengthens the plot a lot. To be honest, it really becomes it feels like Koji's story by the end of it, at least of like the final two routes. There are a lot of like really good moments where you have no idea what's going to happen. There's a genuinely high level of tension. Those are the best points. Those are the best points of the game. I think that it's got a cool Lovecraftian angle to it. It is genuinely Lovecraft. A lot of times people say it's Lovecraftian, and really it's just like there's tentacles. But Song of Saya has a genuine Lovecraftian angle. There is an aspect here where even when you get an understanding, like when you get an explanation for what's going on, there is so much that is left unexplained. And there is clearly, you are basically, the world is a lot bigger than you knew. There is things that no human alive truly understands. And you can't understand really why this is happening. You can make a theory, but you can't know. And even trying to know is a recipe for your own doom. You'll go insane, you'll die. And I like that the whole truth, the scope was never pulled back. Like, the true scope of what's happening here is beyond anything. It's beyond human comprehension. You learn enough to know that. But what we see is a relatively small story of about 6 people interacting with something that they could never possibly understand. They couldn't grasp it. And that's fairly compelling. Now, I will say that if you played the game on Steam, like I did, it is technically censored from the original release. Basically, they took out, from what I understand, the bulk of the sex scenes. It appears that most of the sex scenes are just moaning noises. But several people who love this game swear by the fact that it is integral to the plot that you watch these sex scenes as well. There is a patch that you can download. You can actually get it from the JAST official site. Or is it JAST? I've never known. You can get it from their site by paying for it. It's like $5. You can also probably find it for free somewhere. And I guess, I don't know. I didn't see it. I think I understand the gist of the story without having seen the full sex scenes. I saw someone fiercely defending their inclusion in the game. Someone was like slightly like was like, I don't like that there's sex scenes with a little girl. Fucking crazy take. And there's someone arguing against them, just writing paragraphs. This is on Reddit. I was trying to find discussion on this game, and this guy is just writing paragraphs about how important the lolicon aspect is to it, and how you got fucking filtered, and it's good that people like you aren't playing this game. And his username is I love lolies, and his account is banned. His account has been suspended on Reddit, which is one of the best punchlines that I couldn't have written it better myself. So if you want to see that part and you're interested in the game, yeah, you can find it. Yep. But I think that generally the release is fine. Most of the gore, as I understand it, all the gore was basically included. There is one moment that I don't know if it was censored. There is a character, it's like a dream sequence where a character's face has been like split in half. And in their portrait, it's like blacked out JoJo style. I don't know if that was from the original or added in this. I'm okay with not seeing that myself. Yeah. Song of Saya is good. I think people talk it up a little more. I think it has the kind of the anime blinders effect going on, which I think is appropriate because it is very what I call it anime edgy, which is where the author just never knows when to stop piling on bullshit to how edgy and dark and like twisted. No, you don't get it, man. Fuminori, he's like, he doesn't even think people are people. He doesn't even respect human life. You don't even understand. He's so twisted. Which I think was actually kind of an interesting angle that I think could have been explored a little more. I was very interested in the idea of the sensory thing being a metaphor for how he sees other people and the world around him. And then it goes into a direction where it's much more literal. And I don't know, it kind of loses that thread by the end. I thought that was an interesting idea about like how he perceives other people, but not to be, I guess. But he's so dark and messed up. Like you don't even know how messed up. Like he kills people, man. Like he fucks his little girl slime monster, man. you don't even that's what I call anime edgy. They just never know when to stop shoveling shit on. Ever seen Magical Girl Sight? That's a fucking hilarious show. That show is funny as hell. Like, just watch the first episode of Magical Girl Sight, and I think you'll know what I mean. Maybe the first 2 or 3, I don't remember. Just unending misery that is just, it's ridiculous. It's like fucking Precious. Precious is anime edgy. We're getting a lot of great metaphors here. Ice Age is the American Tokyo Godfathers. Precious is anime edgy. Yeah. Someone edit Precious from the movie Precious, but with like the Sharingan. Yeah, but I guess I would recommend Song of Saya. It is quite short. It is pretty good. I know I spent a long time dogging on it, but these aren't necessarily problems that plague most of the game. The writing is a little bit overly flowery. Like, whoever translated it loves using those big vocab words in a way that slightly bogs down the prose a bit. But it's mostly good. Yeah, pretty intriguing plot. Interesting twists and reveals. Very short, like I said. The game has only 3 routes, and that's really between, like, 2 choices. There's like 2 different choice points in the game. One of them leads to like an early ending. The other one leads to, it'll be like the first choice leads to, one of them is to an early ending. The other choice goes to like the rest of the game. And then down that path, there's 2 endings for 2 choices. So that's, Song of Saya. Song of Saya. Alright, Vampire Crawlers came out. And yeah, that's also been taking up a lot of my time. Ooh, boy, getting to go on. So while I was working, Vampire Crawlers came out while I was working on the Japanese horror video. And I had to grind so much to get that thing out when I did, which was already like a month late, basically. That video took a lot of work. And Vampire Crawlers came out in the middle of that. I bought it, played it for one evening, and was like, I have to stop myself. I have to cut myself off right now. Like 2 or 3 hours into the game. Because I need to work. This is going to take up too much of my time. I have to do the responsible thing and not play this game until I'm done with the video. Now that I have finished the video and I've been playing it, I am delighted to say that it is very, very, very fun. Now, take this with a grain of salt, because I have not played the real contemporaries in the genre, like Slay the Spire or anything like that, but Vampire Crawlers is a very fun pick 3 rogue light deck builder dungeon crawling game. I love the visuals of this game. I think it's really fun to take... It feels like a fan game in a really good way. Like, they've taken the assets and aesthetics and items and things and characters and the enemies from Vampire Survivors, but they have made a 3D world using the same textures and sprites, and taken the gameplay identity of things like all the items and stuff and all the weapons and the chests and the light sources and all the mechanics from Vampire Survivors have been translated into this dungeon crawling game with like card-based combat where you're building up a deck as you go through a level. It feels like a really nice transition, adaptation of one thing into another genre. Sometimes some games, especially if they're based on something else, can slavishly devote themselves. Like, I just watched a video on the Terraria board game, and the biggest critique of that was that the board game is so fixated on just basically adapting Terraria stuff, that the board game feels like unplayable. It is just so long and so slow and so detailed that it takes like 9 hours to finish one game of it. Sometimes they can fall into that trap, but from survivors to crawlers, it's a very smooth adaptation. The game, I talked about the demo when it came out. I will reiterate what the game is like. There's a bunch of different levels that are based off of ones from Vampire Survivors. You go into a level and you start with a deck of cards, which are all either weapons, which you use as they're like the weapons from Vampire Survivors, which are your attacks, or items, which give you benefits in some form, boosting a stat or drawing a card or something like that. All of the enemies, there's no random encounters. All the enemies are on the map, and you know when you can fight them. That adds an element of resource management in the sense that you have to plan out. You basically have to look at what is realistic for you to do. How many fights do you think you can take at the current, your current power level? And then plotting a course through the dungeon to the boss of each floor. There's usually 5 or 6 floors on each dungeon. To get to the end in, as they say, one piece. In between runs, you unlock items and relics new characters, which have different like starting decks and character specific cards. You unlock, there's Arcana to give you crazy modifiers. There are, of course, an entire suite of upgrades, which pretty closely match the ones from Survivors. There is like a blacksmith that you can get that'll give you, you can upgrade the cards in your collection or that you have unlocked, which is really useful. So you always start each run of each level in the same way that Vampire Survivors has a very satisfying curve, because it every single run in about 30 or 15 minutes if you're on hurry mode. In the way that every single run will tell a complete story from beginning to end of starting out weak, gaining experience, enemies increasing, building out your items and weapons, to the end where you are this massive, unstoppable bullet hell machine with tons of amazing feedback and visuals and sound effects. And it does that every single run. You get that. Crawlers taps into that same quick dopamine rush feel where it's very satisfying. It's very bite-sized. And you always start, so you always start with a very small deck of like maybe 6 cards. And then every time you level up, you get to pick 3, sometimes 4, if your luck is good, from the cards you currently have unlocked. There is, and you do have to think about, in the same way that in Survivors, you have to think about the items and weapons you're picking up, what things synergize with each other, what items you need to evolve your weapons. In Crawlers, there are item evolutions for one, but also the game's combo system is a ever-present mechanic. You have a resource of mana that you can spend to play your cards. Mana resets back to a given default at the start of each turn. Your turn ends when you have no more cards left to play or that you can pay for. At which point the enemies will basically have their round, and then you draw up a brand new hand of cards. You flush out the old one, you draw a new hand of cards. Your mana is reset, and go. If you play cards in ascending cost, it's a combo, and you get bonus stats on those cards. If you play, you'll start out with a 0 cost, and then the next 1 cost cards you play will get like double damage or something like that, or a double stat boost, something along those lines. Which means that in the more difficult fights, the larger that your deck gets, the more cards you have to actually understand how to make big combos, how to extend your combos, what order to play cards in, and it has like that nice feeling of every hand being a little puzzle where you have to figure out the most optimal way to get the most damage out of your hand. Of course, there are ways to draw cards. You can unlock, occasionally you get the option to put a gem in a card, like one single card that you own. They have like these gem slots, and they basically put modifiers on them. It could be like double damage, or when you play it, it increases your might stat, which is like your damage. There's one that lets you draw a card. There is a card that is draw 1 card. If you combo it, you draw 2 cards. There is a card that gives you mana. There are multiple tiers of the same card that will like stack up with a higher and higher cost. So like the mana giving one is the tome, it's the book. The regular tome is 0 and it gives you 2 mana. Or no, it gives you 1? It gives you 1 mana. The 1 cost tome gives you 2 mana, which means that you net gain 1. Therefore, if you combo it, it gives you like 4 mana, so you net gain 3. But then, because it's a vampire game, you can kind of break the system over your knee with certain arcana combinations, such as the one that makes it so that after you play there's one arcana that gives you a special modifier. Every time you play a card, for the rest of the turn, any other copies of that are free. And it applies to just different tiers of the same item. So every single tome that gives you mana counts as a tome. So you get that one, you use that arcana, stack your deck with a couple of these mana generating cards of increasing tier. You play the 0 cost. You play the 1 cost for free, get 4 mana from it. You play the 2 cost that gives you 6 mana for free as well. And you basically have infinite mana. Now you combine this with comboing into draw cards to give you more stuff and more extensions. You get more cards and more resources to play them. And you are looking for what are the optimal ways to, like, I'm going to play this 0 cost, and then I'm going to play this, like, buff card, and then I'm going to combo that into, I'm going to play the 0 cost, I'm going to combo it into a buff, and then I'm going to combo that into a big attack. And you're just going and going and going and figuring out, like, multiple mini combos that you can do out of a big hand. It is very fun and satisfying to figure out how to do. It's got all those great animations and crunch crash sound effects that you'd probably expect out of a game of this developer. And it's I could feel my skill at deck building and figuring out the synergies of my cards increasing as I went along. It's just a very fun game to unlock stuff in, to progress in. The combat is... It's just like Vampire Survivors in the sense that it's engaging enough that I want to think about it and pay attention. But I could also listen to a podcast in the background. And that's the magic of Vampire Crawlers. It's a real good unwind game for that kind of a genre. It feels good. You can drop it and pick it up at basically any time. If you quit in the middle of a dungeon, you can just easily continue. I will mention, important, progress from the demo carries over to the full game. So I was able to just click continue, and I was right back where I left off when I ran through the demo. Crawlers, big thumbs up. I foresee this being another kind of steady rotation game where I don't know what to play. You know what? Fuck it. I'll play some Vampire Crawlers and unwind for a little bit. I'll relax. Speaking of great games to kind of unwind and chill out to, I've been getting real back into Final Fantasy XIV. Every time there's a big hype trailer for 14, I get back into it. And the last time it happened, I kind of burnt out a little bit. Well, here's the thing. Okay. So, I'm in Heaven's Word right now. I'm a little ways in. I'm around like the level 52 main story quests. If you're not familiar with 14, I absolutely love this game. It's a little hard to recommend it because you have to have a bit of a caveat that the base game can be a little slow if you are just focusing on the main story. So, Final Fantasy XIV very infamously launched in a horrible state. They blew it up, remade the game, relaunched it as 2.0, aka A Realm Reborn. And for as much of a miracle as A Realm Reborn is, and was back then, you can definitely tell that it was made under some time constraints. There is a lot of stupid-ass filler in A Realm Reborn that is just like, the questing in 14 has never been amazing. It's generally talk to this guy, now 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 do this dungeon, now talk to this guy, now find this 3 of these items, now talk to this guy. When it works, it's because the story is good. 14 basically functions like a kind of traditional JRPG, like single player JRPG, where you play through a main story, and then at the end, it opens up into a big multiplayer game. That is an even stronger way to describe it now, because you can play most of the game with AI companions. There are occasional moments where, like when I first played the game, there are moments where you're like going through and unlocking multiplayer dungeons, and you have to group up with people. And I think it was good to force me to group up with people. But if you are very scared of that, you can, because honestly, grouping with people is not that bad. People in 14 tend to be very nice and very patient and actually really helpful and excited to help newer players if they don't know what the fuck is going on. People are actually really nice in this game. Like, infamously very nice in-game community, I'll say. Out of game, it's a different story. But the in-game culture is very pleasant. I've always had really good interactions with the 14 community in the world itself. But you can now play through like most of the game with AI companions for those dungeons if you want to. And sometimes, if I'm lazy, I will. However, a lot of the fun to me is actually grouping with people and just kind of having a multiplayer experience. But that's basically how the game works. The questing is very straightforward. The early game tends to be quite simple because you are low level. Your character doesn't have a lot of abilities. Everything in 14 is kind of designed in a way where a lot of the payoff comes a ways into playing it. The story spends a lot of time setting things up. And when it gets there and when the ball really gets rolling, it's quite engrossing. And you're actually excited to go talk to this guy and talk to this guy, then talk to this guy. And it's actually, you're like, oh, I want to do this now. The job system is fantastic. I love the job system in 14. And the jobs themselves are really interesting and distinct. But in the early game, the plot is kind of fillery, and it's just sort of like excuses for you to spend more time doing stuff and go to this place and go to this place and get familiar. They just want to send you to basically every location in the world. And while you're doing this, your character is still kind of half-formed. A lot of people will say things like, oh yeah, the job really doesn't become real until level 50, level 60, 70, 80, depending on what expansion it was added in. And it can be a bit of a drag when you've just got like a really simple kit. Of course, when it finally builds up, there's a lot of really, really cool. You're spinning a lot of plates, and the plate spinning is the fun part of the combat. Basically, I love, like, ninja is such a fun class. Might be one of my favorite jobs in the whole series in any MMO. I fucking love how ninja plays in 14 in general, like the basis. They've made some changes to it that I feel a little bit iffy this way or that way, but the premise of ninja is that you are, of course, a melee DPS class, but your gimmick is that you do Naruto hand jutsus. So you have these 3 mudras, is what they're called. They're like chants, essentially. And you tap them in different combinations and different amounts to produce different ninjutsus. You have a dedicated ninjutsu skill, which on its own does nothing, and I don't even think can be activated. But the moment you press a mudra, it turns into something. And it's like, there's a whole chart for what different combinations of mudras. There's like a dozen or something different ninjutsu skills. And they're useful for different situations. There's a rotation you gotta learn when you're doing dungeons. And honestly, it's really fun. It's really fun to like be dexterous and hit my little combination and watch the timer and the cooldown for when I gotta do this and when this thing comes back up and put my buff back on. It's really fun. It's a fun job. I just like hitting the buttons on it. And every class is like really, generally like a really good hook. None of them feel that generic. Even the simple ones. Like, I guess Paladin's a very straightforward tank, but sometimes you just want to play a very straightforward tank. Warrior is like the they take more damage, but they kind of heal it back kind of tank. Dark Knight is like deal self damage, and then they have like, instead of having a move that turns them invulnerable, they have a move where if it's like a thing, it lasts for 10 seconds. It's called Living Dead. You activate Living Dead, and then if you die within those 10 seconds, you become like a corpse that like resurrects, and you get like access to new moves and buffs and stuff, which is a really cool concept. Black Mage has always been really neat to me, but I've never felt the drive to really like level a Black Mage. They have fire spells and ice spells. If you have basically the more consecutive fire spells you cast, the more damage they do, but also the more mana they cost. The more consecutive ice spells you cast, I think they get a little bit of a damage buff, but you get mana back. They replenish your mana. So Black Mages are all about standing in one spot and hitting a very specific rotation to optimize your DPS. And you're like, that sounds really simple. You're just standing in one spot. Yeah, because MMO bosses are designed to make you move around. That's why it's actually the hardest job in the game. They are designed to make you move around. It's actually hard to stand in one spot and just do your thing. There's all sorts of cool job concepts in 14, and you are encouraged to just level them all. You know, level as many as you like. They all have their own quest lines, and a lot of them have pretty intriguing stories. Some of them are considered better than the main quest sometimes. So as soon as I got to Heavensward, I'm like, okay, well, I want to level a Dark Knight. Because I've heard that in Shadowbringers, the Dark Knight quest line is fucking unbelievably good. So sure, let me hop into it. All of this stuff is great when you're into it, when you're in the guts. But the pacing of the game in A Realm Reborn can really drag it down, which is why, if you're gonna play the game, I would recommend actually like investing in side content. I think it gives you a really nice appreciation for the world to unlock stuff. Everything is unlocked through quest lines, like dungeons, jobs, tons of like all sorts of different features, and that stuff is fun. Doing the Golden Saucer, which is just mini game galore palace, is really fun. I've always loved the Golden Saucer. Every time I hop back into 14, my default is to just start collecting stuff. I love collecting mounts and minions. Minions are just little pet guys you have follow you around. I have a bunch of them. I've done like a ton of like the Beast Tribe quest lines just so that I can get specific mounts because I like them so much. To me, it really scratches the itch. If you like collecting stuff, if you like doing side content, 14 is an absolute treasure trove for that. It also has some of the most interesting and involved non-combat jobs in any MMO that I've seen. Crafting and gathering have like tons of different, there's like at least a dozen of those, I think, of jobs for different disciplines. And they are genuinely involved. They have their own quest lines. There's lots of content that is specifically made for those. There's like these beast tribe quests that revolve around, okay, well, I got really into glamours for my character, which are basically just making cool outfits for your character. After I beat base 2.0, I got really into like finding a cool outfit. I went and grinded a bunch of the gold saucer currency, which is, they have their own like Chuck E. Cheese tokens. I played a bunch of the mini games and gambled a lot, and I eventually built up enough money. I played a lot of Triple Triad. Ooh, Triple Triad's fun. I got really into Triple Triad for a while. I was going around the whole world just challenging all the Triple Triad NPCs until I got enough Chuck E. Cheese tokens to buy the full Gambler set, which is just Setzer's outfit from Final Fantasy VI. Setzer's one of my favorite Final Fantasy characters. And then I was like, oh, I can dye these clothes in different colors. And I was looking through all the colors I could use. And I was like, damn, I love a nice dark green color, like in real life as well. Oh, this would look so cool dyed. I think you can preview it as well. How do I get the forest green paint? Well, either you can grind all the way to fucking oh my god, why can't I remember? Stormblood, and there's an NPC who sells it in Stormblood, or you can get it from this one vendor from the Beast Tribes. The vendor will not talk to you until you have fully completed the Beast Tribe quest line for the like reptile people in Gridania. Okay, fine. So I then spent like 2 days doing that whole quest line, which involves them, they have like this god in the sky, and their faith has been getting weakened. So one of the leaders is like, can you help us out? And we want to build an airship because we think it'll make like a nice way to increase our worship, like our feeling of religious piety, if we can actually be in the sky. And so you've got to like collect a bunch of materials from around the world and craft them into stuff. And like the crafting itself is its own mini game. And there's like skills and stuff you learn. And there's like percentage chances that you can craft certain levels of materials. And this ties into like on a meta level, the whole in-game economy of trading stuff. And it's really cool. It's very well integrated. And in like static groups, people will be like the resident like armor smith or cook or something like that, and they kind of help the party gear up and have a bunch of food to give, you know, top level buffs and stuff like that. It's all super, super cool once you get into it. So I went through the whole Realm Reborn storyline, which really picks up in the last half. And then I was like, okay, great. On to Heavensward. Taigen, you gotta go through the patch content. So after 14 came out, well, you know, came out again, what followed was several months of updates that added more story content. There are 6 or 7, patches to go through, which add, no, it is 6. Yeah, it's like 2.1 through 5, and then there's like a 2.55. And every single one of these patches has like a whole multi-hour long quest line, which is not in itself bad. The problem is that all of these quest lines are setups for different things. So the way that I understand it, that they do it now, is the expansion comes out, it chills for like 6 months or something. Maybe not 6 months, maybe like 3 months. And then every 3 months, they drop a new patch with new story content that wraps up some loose ends from the main plot of the expansion and introduces new plot lines that lead into the next expansion. And they do this with 3 times. Every expansion gets 3 patches. There's like a 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, 4.0. Next expansion, Stormblood. Let's go, baby. In A Realm Reborn, they spend a lot more time in that little interstitial period, and it can really drag. There are some high points. One of the best fights in the game, the Shiva fight, is in that the patch content. It's an absolute high point. There's some good cutscenes. There's also just a lot of shit that I don't really care about. There's an interesting plot thread with like refugees from Alamigo, which gets brought up in the main storyline, but is really a focus of the patch content for a few patches. And that stuff's kind of interesting. The biggest problem with the patches from a story perspective is that they're all different setups. They're all literally starting different plot threads that will not come to fruition for dozens of hours. In like 2.2, you get introduced to the Domons, which are like, they are refugees from, so like the opposing evil empire is the Garlean Empire. They're like the big final villains of A Realm Reborn, and the in Heavensward, there's like dragon peoples, because dragons are a big theme of that. That's when they added the dragon race, the Aura. And the Domon show up, and they were like a colony. They were basically imperialized by the Garleans, and then because of all this chaos that's happened in the Garlean Empire, partially due to you, the Domon people, like part of them try to break out and get out from under the thumb of the Empire. A couple of them are like refugees. There's a lot of political strife. There's like this princess who shows up, and that's all I remember. That's an entire quest line. However, I cannot be too hard on that patch because it did add the ninja class. Okay, she shows up. I don't remember fucking anything that happens in that whole storyline. Genuinely, 30 hours later or more in my playtime, maybe longer in my playtime, she shows back up again. And I was like, oh, fuck, for real? And this just keeps happening, where characters show up and I'm like, fuck, you're from the patch content. Fuck, what happened? Thank God someone wrote a summary. Someone wrote a pretty good summary of the patch content that you can like Control F through online. And like that was necessary, because it was like you go through this whole thing and it goes nowhere. It goes nowhere. And then you're on to the next thing. You're on to the next patch and the next big quest line. And it just feels like there is no momentum in the story at all. It's just a bunch of disconnected episodes that really build towards nothing, that many of them don't even feel like they're building on that much. And these are essentially just your previews for these characters. So they are not really at their most interesting forms yet. And then you get to the very last batch, and it's like, you gotta do a whole alliance raid. You gotta do a 24-man raid. Actually, that was optional, but I still did it because I wanted to. No, wait, is it even optional? Oh god, I don't remember. No, that's optional. There's a different thing that is optional. I don't think I did that because I was just sick of it. There's a fucking cat boy named Graha Tia. My brain, when I think of him, my brain goes numb. I know he will come back in the future. I see him in the trailers all the time. So I'm like, okay. I power through the rest of the patch content. I get to the very last patch. I get to the very end of A Realm Reborn. I am rewarded with a 30-minute cutscene. It's a really good 30-minute cutscene. I was into it. Then I get to Heavensward. I do a couple quests. I realize that I'm kind of doing the same thing. That's just a couple, like, light, fluffy, hey, you get to grips with the new thing. Which I'm sure after this is going to feel just fine, you know? But right now, I really wanted, well, not right now. This is several months ago. I just really wanted the game to grab me. I really wish the game was grabbing me again, and it just wasn't because we're at the low stakes early part of the story. So then the trailer for Evercold comes out, and they make a bunch of announcements, Evercold being the next expansion. They make a bunch of announcements. So first of all, the free trial is getting expanded. It now goes up to the third major expansion, Shadowbringers. Well, as soon as Evercold comes out, it will. Shadowbringers is like one of the most acclaimed things ever in the whole series. I've heard it talked up for God knows how long. I don't actually know what it's about because 14 fans treat fucking music tracks like spoilers. There is a ridiculous spoiler culture in the 14 community. Like, I think they go really... I get the story's good. You guys are a little too intense about you. Oh no, you don't listen to... Mute the video. There's spoilers for the song. Like, fucking yeah. I think 14 fans are so litigious about spoilers that it actually kind of hurts the game a little bit. Because I know so fucking... They will tell you so little about the game. It's so good. Oh my god, it's so good. But sometimes you need a little hook. Sometimes you need a little hook to let you... to be like, oh, this actually sounds kind of interesting. Okay, like you have to prove it. Especially if you want someone to play a fucking big-ass MMO that's going to take them hundreds of hours. I think it's worth it. Oh, it's all worth it. It's a fantastic game. I would absolutely recommend it. But, like, you know, expecting someone to buy into that just based off of, oh, it's really good. Trust me. I can't tell you anything that happens because it's so good. I think they're a little silly. Okay. I got a text. Anyway. So, okay, well, Shadowbringers, that intrigues me. Also, they're massively reworking the combat and job progression. They have this new evolved combat system. Basically, the idea is they are, I think, streamlining the jobs. There's been definitely a lot of, like, just knowing what I know about the jobs in the future and where they go. There is definitely, like, people talk about ability bloat. I can definitely see that. Some of the jobs seem like they have a lot, like, just, you know, years and years of being built up and fleshed out. There's a lot going on. And it also leads to an issue that I've seen people talk about, which also makes a lot of sense to me, but this is secondhand. Remember how I said, oh, the job doesn't really feel good. It doesn't feel complete until, like, level 70 or 80 or something like that. Yeah, like, that's more and more of a problem where it's like The job now at what they're like level 100, 110 is the current level cap. The jobs from like the base game are now super developed out. They have all of these tools and all of these systems and mechanics and layers upon layers of things, and they have a lot going on, and they're very interesting. But man, it takes a really long time to get to that peak of your character, essentially. So part of the evolved combat system is that, according to them, all of your core class mechanics will be unlocked by level 50. Or at the very, like, when you get to your first level cap, which is like, okay, cool. That is actually quite intriguing to me. They're also reworking like paring down abilities. There's a lot of like 3-hit combo moves that are basically just, hey, what if you had a 3-hit sequence, but they were all different buttons you had to press? Those are all now gonna be like one single button that just changes when you press it, which is like, okay, fun, but it's less buttons to press. But like, yeah, they're taking out the illusion of complexity. They're just like, yeah, press the button 3 times in a row. And stuff like that is very intriguing to me. I'm really curious how they're going to change some of the jobs that I like personally. And it kind of makes me excited. They made a lot of, from what I understand, a lot of the jobs in 14 have unfortunately undergone a lot of homogenization, where they all play the same, they all work on the same like 2.5 minute rotation of global cooldowns and such. And it's made the game a lot less varied and distinct, especially at a high level. And they are also getting rid of that. They are completely changing the design sensibility of how they're balancing classes and adding a lot more diversity to the way everyone plays, while also paring down on the amount of buttons you have to press. We don't have all the details on that, but it's interesting. So I figured, hey, let's get back into 14. Let's give it another college try. Let's give Heaven's Word another try, which, funny enough, is where I've heard it starts getting really good. And mind you, I liked A Realm Reborn well enough. Like, I loved my experience in Realm Reborn. Just in spite of all of its flaws, I just fucking love being in the world of Eorzea. It is probably the closest that we will ever get, or at least we have gotten yet, to a full 3D world that adapts Yoshitaka Amano's art style. It is clearly heavily, if you look at a lot of Amano's pieces, 14, especially in certain lighting, really resembles his work. It evokes a lot of the same feelings. I remember standing on one of the beaches, I think it's in eastern Lenosha, stormy, cliffside beach, not like a fun tropical beach. And I'm just looking over the blowing grass and these wind-swept hills and the clouds being pushed over the sky and the big gray ocean. And I was like, for a second, I felt like I was standing in an Amano painting. It was really magical. And I look at the aesthetic, and it looks a little generic fantasy on the surface, but you really spend a little bit of time in the world and you really get immersed into it, and it has a very distinctive texture and flavor. There's a bit of that sepia tone that Amano talks about. His fantasy is a sepia filter. There's a bit of a grayness to a lot of environments, and it once you understand 14's visual identity, nothing else really looks the same. Nothing else, it doesn't really blur into anything else. It does have its own thing going on. And I really enjoy that. And oh my god, the capital city, like the main city in Heavensward, Ishgard, is just awesome. It's a big castle town. The music is sick. It's always snowing. just the architecture. It's this gothic castle city. It's so cool. I just love walking around there. The big organ theme. And yeah, so having pushed through the early stuff and into like the first real plot line of the game, yeah, no, it's I'm into it again. I'm hooked again. All I've been thinking about is playing more of the game. I gotta play more 14. I gotta find out what happens next. Yeah, I recommend it. It has an amazingly generous free trial. It's a really fun game. It's got lots of... Definitely try to experience a little bit more of the full breadth of it. You should go into it knowing that the beginning of the game might be a little wonky. It might be a little slow. But if you're open to taking your time and exploring a little bit, it's extremely engrossing. There's so much cool shit to do. Like, side content in 14 is so... It feels so good. I love doing it. And yeah, again, a lot of it just amounts to talk to this guy, talk to this guy, talk to this guy, fight these things. But man, the way they do it, and the stuff you get, and the stuff that's happening, man, it's just such a compelling, special game to me. I really do love it. I really love 14. Oh, there's a Gilgamesh plot line. Ooh, the Gilgamesh side quest is so good when he shows up. It's in the Hildebrand quest. They're like these goofy, a lot of detective things for some reason on this podcast. And yeah, the Hildebrand quests are great. Really fun. Tons of effort put into those. Wacky escapades with an overconfident gentleman detective. Just like the game is just so likable to me. Yeah, I'm giving a big resounding re-up on Final Fantasy 14. It is worth it, and that's it's a big thing of. I've been playing a lot of it recently and having a very good time. I'm really into Heavensward at the moment. Leveling through the story with a Dark Knight. And then I think that my strategy is basically I pick like one job to go through an expansion with. And then any other jobs I want to level, I'll just do roulettes or other content and just grind it because I do enjoy grind. You know what? I like sitting back and grinding roulettes. It's fun. Dungeon roulettes. That's another really good thing. I love the roulette system. It keeps old content populated by incentivizing experienced players to go into old dungeons with newer players. Many of them will be going through it for the first time, and that's fun. It's fun to like walk people through stuff now that I'm experienced in a lot of the early like Realm Reborn dungeons and all that. There's a really good level sync system where if you're above the level for content, it'll just sync you down to the level. You'll have all the appropriate abilities for that level and everything and stats. And you can kind of play on a more equal playing field with the other players, so it doesn't feel like you're just absolutely blowing up the whole thing because you're so over-leveled for it and no one else gets to play or have fun. Yeah, I don't know. I could go on and on and on about 14. But I should really stop because I'm closing it on 4 hours. Woof. I think I'm going to draw this to a close. If you've been listening this far, thank you for listening to me ramble. If you have a question, feel free to leave it down in the comments below, but please phrase it in the form of a question because I'm not just going to read your thoughts out loud. I'm very excited to get to work on the next video. I think it's a really fun topic. I am invigorated to really get into the nitty-gritty of it. I've just kind of been doing a lot of, let's say a lot of listening as part of my research. And, yeah, you can support me on Patreon. Check out the most recent video. It took a lot of work. I have a coffee if you want to give me donations as well. Bye.